Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Mandalorian sage, the wielder of a Kekkei Genkai, Naruto x Bo-Katan Kryze, Star Wars. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Fox of Mandalore. The crimson moon of Concordia bathed the abandoned mining facility in blood-red light, casting long shadows across the rusted equipment and crumbling infrastructure. A lone figure perched atop a derelict ore processor, his silhouette unmistakable against the night sky, the distinctive T-visor of a Mandalorian helmet gleaming briefly as he scanned the compound below. Unlike traditional Mandalorian armor, his Beskar plates featured unique swirling patterns etched into their surface, with orange and black accents complementing the traditional silver-gray. Tie. Lized fox emblem adorned his right pauldron, its 9 tails curling around his shoulder. Naruto Uzumaki exhaled slowly, centering himself as he extended his senses beyond ordinary perception. The world around him shifted, ambient energy revealing itself in pulsating waves only he could detect. 12 hostiles moved through the compound, 10 hired guns surrounding a high-value target and his personal bodyguard. His target, Moff Dregan, had escaped Imperial justice for years, having orchestrated the purge of 3 systems during the height of the Empire's reign. "There you are," Naruto murmured, his voice low and gravelly through the helmet's modulator. He didn't need thermal imaging to pinpoint their locations. The sage's resonance, his unique Kekkei Genkai, allowed him to sense the IR presence through the natural energy flowing around all living things. Each signature burned like a flame in his heightened awareness, their movements, intentions, and even emotional states evident in the subtle fluctuations of energy. Adjusting the unique vambrace on his left arm, Naruto prepared himself for what would come next. Unlike standard Mandalorian equipment, his gear combined ancient shinobi technology with modern Mandalorian craftsmanship, the legacy of 2 warrior cultures merged into something entirely unique. Naruto leapt from his perch, his descent controlled and silent despite the weight of his armor. Landing in a crouch, he formed a hand sign that would appear strange to most bounty hunters, index and middle fingers crossed on both hands. 3 identical energy constructs materialized beside him, perfect replicas that glowed with a subtle orange energy before solidifying into mirror images of himself. "You know the plan," he said to his constructs, who nodded silently before dispersing to predetermined positions around the compound. In the galaxy's underworld, they called him the Fox, not just for the emblem he wore, but for his cunning and the way he aimed to be everywhere at once during combat. Few understood the true nature of his abilities, and he preferred to keep it that way. In a galaxy where force sensitives had been hunted to near extinction, any unusual power drew unwanted attention. Naruto moved with practiced precision through the shadows, his footfalls nearly silent despite the Beskar armor. Ahead, 2 mercenaries patrolled a narrow walkway, their blaster rifles held casually across their chests. "Getting tired of this backwater job," one guard grumbled. "Dregan promised us action, not babysitting duty on this rust bucket of a moon." The second guard chuckled. "Patience, Drent. The credits are good," and his response died in his throat as an armored arm wrapped around his neck from behind. Before the first guard could react, a weighted cord shot out from Naruto's vambrace, wrapping around his ankles and yanking him off his feet. The fox was on him in an instant, a quick strike to the temple rendering him unconscious. Through his sage's resonance, Naruto sensed one of his constructs engaging 3 guards on the eastern perimeter. The connection allowed him to share in the construct's sensory input, a partial awareness that expanded his battlefield perception. Another construct was setting up charges on the facility's antiquated power generator, not to destroy it, but to create a precisely timed distraction. Moving deeper into the compound, Naruto encountered a sealed blast door. Rather than using explosives or slicing tools, he placed his palm against the metal surface. Channeling natural energy through his hand, he sent a pulse through the door's locking mechanism, manipulating the internal components until the security system disengaged with a satisfying click. Inside, the dimly lit corridor led to what once had been an administrative center, now converted into Dragon's temporary command post. 4 guards stood vigilant outside the main office, their postures tense as if expecting trouble. It's time, Naruto whispered into his comm. Across the compound, his construct triggered the charges. The explosion was controlled but spectacular, sending the facility into momentary darkness before emergency generators kicked in, bathing everything in pulsating red light. Alarms blared as confused shouts echoed through the corridors. The 4 guards outside the office tensed, raising their weapons as 2 ran toward the disturbance. Naruto seized the opportunity, dropping from a ventilation shaft directly between the remaining guards. Before they could react, he swept one guard's legs while simultaneously launching a vibroblade from his vambrace into the shoulder of the other, immobilizing but not killing him. The first guard recovered quickly, firing his blaster at point-blank range. Naruto twisted, the bolt grazing his Beskar pauldron as he closed the distance. With practiced efficiency, he disarmed the man, using his own momentum to slam him into the wall with enough force to crack the duracrete. The Fox. The wounded guard gasped, fumbling for his comm unit. It's the Fox. He's. A swift strike silenced him as Naruto approached the office door. Without hesitation, he kicked it open, rolling into the room as blaster fire erupted from within. Dragon's personal bodyguard, a towering Trandoshan with scales bearing the scars of countless battles, opened fire with a heavy repeating blaster, forcing Naruto behind a durasteel desk. You've made a mistake coming here alone, bounty hunter, the Trandoshan hissed, his reptilian voice thick with malice. Behind him, Moff Dregon, a gaunt, pale man with the rigid posture of a lifetime Imperial officer, sneered confidently. Even the infamous Fox can't escape this room alive. Krell, finish him. The Trandoshan advanced, his weapon laying down suppressive fire as he moved to flank Naruto's position. What neither opponent realized was that the Fox was never truly alone in battle. From his crouched position, Naruto formed another hand sign, channeling energy that manifested as a swirling sphere in his palm, compressed natural energy that hummed with power. As the Trandoshan rounded the desk, Naruto lunged forward, driving the spiraling energy directly into the bodyguard's chest. The impact sent Krell flying backward, his armor cracking as the concentrated force dissipated throughout his body. Dragon's confidence faltered as he scrambled for a hidden blaster in his desk drawer. Stay back. Do you have any idea who I am? The bounty on my head is nothing compared to what I could pay you. Naruto approached slowly, the T-visor of his helmet revealing nothing of the contempt in his eyes. I know exactly who you are, Moff Dregon. I was there on Ryloth when you ordered the purge of the eastern settlements. For the first time, fear crept into the Imperial's eyes. That was war. I was following orders. So am I. Naruto's voice was ice cold as he disabled the man with a precise strike, rendering him unconscious. The New Republic wants you alive to stand trial. Consider yourself fortunate. Others would not be so merciful. With practiced efficiency, Naruto secured restraints around the Moff's wrists. Through his sage's resonance, he sensed his constructs had neutralized the remaining guards without casualties, a point of pride in his operations. Unlike many bounty hunters who left destruction in their wake, the Fox preferred precision over chaos when possible. As he prepared to extract with his prisoner, Naruto's heightened senses detected something unexpected. A familiar energy signature emanating from Dragon's private quarters adjacent to the office. Moving cautiously, he discovered a small safe hidden behind an Imperial insignia on the wall. Inside was not credits or weapons, but something far more valuable to someone with his heritage, an ancient scroll bearing symbols he recognized from his childhood, before his world had been consumed by fire. Markings were unmistakable, the spiral emblem of Uzushio, combined with Mandalorian script so old it predated the Mandalorian Wars. It was a relic that shouldn't exist in this part of the galaxy. Especially not in the possession of an Imperial officer. Now why would you have this? Naruto murmured, carefully securing the scroll in a protected compartment of his armor. This wasn't just salvage, or a random artifact. It was a piece of his own fractured history, one he couldn't leave behind. With his prisoner secured and the unexpected treasure obtained, Naruto activated his comm unit. Kurama, bring the ship to extraction point Delta. I've got the package and something extra. A series of beeps and electronic warbles responded, his modified astromech acknowledging the command. As the droid brought their ship, the Kitsune's shadow, to the designated landing zone, Naruto's mind raced with questions. Imperial interest in Uzushio relics was troubling at best, potentially catastrophic at worst. If they had discovered the connection between the ancient chakra users and force sensitives, it could explain the targeted purges that had nearly exterminated his clan years ago. The answers would have to wait. For now, he had a bounty to collect and a new mystery to unravel. The spaceport on Nevero hummed with activity, a stark contrast to the desolation that had Charaktera's. Edit during the height of Imperial control. Naruto guided the Kitsune's Shadow, a modified Kamerk-class fighter with customized engines and reinforced hull plating, to a landing pad in the commercial district. Away from the areas frequented by the Bounty Hunters Guild. His relationship with the guild was complicated. He accepted their contracts when it suited him but operated independently. Not to cause friction with more traditional members. After securing Drigon in a containment cell aboard the ship, Naruto removed his helmet, revealing features that spoke to his mixed heritage. Bright blue eyes contrasted with distinctive facial markings, 3 whisker-like lines on each cheek that some mistook for scars but were actually birthmarks characteristic of his bloodline. His unruly blonde hair fell just past his eyes. Having grown out during this latest hunt. Keep our systems running, Kurama, he instructed the astromech. I won't be long. The orange and black droid beeped affirmatively. Its modified chassis bearing the same 9-tailed fox emblem as Naruto's armor. Unlike standard astromechs, Kurama had been heavily customized with specialized slicing protocols and defensive capabilities that had saved Naruto's life more than once. Naruto made his way through the bustling streets, his armor drawing respectful distance from most passers-by. Mandalorians were rare enough to command caution, even in the Outer Rim territories. Those who recognized the specific markings of the fox gave him an even wider berth, his reputation for bringing in the most dangerous IEs alive when others would have settled for a corpse had earned him both admiration and wariness. The New Republic outpost was housed in what had once been an Imperial administrative building, the S. Tark utilitarian architecture now softened by civilian additions and colorful banners representing member worlds. Inside, Naruto bypassed the public reception area, heading directly to a secured door where he placed his hand on a scanner. Identification confirmed. Uzumaki, Naruto. Clearance level. Spectre, announced an automated system as the door slid open. Beyond it, a Twi'lek woman in a new Republic uniform looked up from her datapad, her expression shifting from professional detachment to genuine warmth. The fox returns. Successful hunt, I take it. Aren't they all, Hera? Naruto responded with a hint of a smile. The first he'd allowed himself since leaving Concordia. Dragons secured aboard my ship. Your security team can transfer him to a Republic transport whenever you're ready. Hera Syndulla, veteran pilot of the rebellion and now a high-ranking officer in the New Republic Intelligence Division, nodded appreciatively. That's the 3rd war criminal you've brought in this standard month. The tribunal has been asking if you're working from a specific list. Just keeping promises, Naruto replied, his tone suggesting the conversation should move elsewhere. The payment. Hera activated her datapad, transferring the agreed-upon bounty to Naruto's secured account. Transferred, with the bonus for bringing him in unharmed. Though I hear his bodyguard might need medical attention. He'll live, Naruto said dismissively. Krell has survived worse than a Rasengan to the chest. Hera's eyebrow raised at the unfamiliar term. One of your special techniques. Instead of answering, Naruto produced the scroll he'd recovered from Dragon's safe. I found this in his possession. Care to explain why an Imperial moth would have a relic bearing Uzushio symbols? The change in Hera's expression was subtle but unmistakable to someone with Naruto's perceptive abilities, a momentary widening of eyes, a slight tensing of shoulders. That's unexpected. May I? Naruto hesitated before carefully unrolling the scroll on her desk. The parchment was ancient, preserved through some method that kept it from deteriorating despite its apparent age. The script Co. MBINED early Mandalorian runes with the flowing calligraphy of Uzushio, creating a text that few in the galaxy could decipher. We've been tracking Imperial remnant interest in ancient artifacts, Hera admitted. Studying the scroll without touching it, particularly those related to force sensitives or other, unique abilities. This is the first concrete evidence connecting them to Uzushio. This isn't just any scroll, Naruto said. his finger hovering over a particular symbol. This is part of the Whirlpool Codex, texts describing the original alliance between Mandalorian explorers and my ancestors. It contains techniques that combine Mandalorian iron working with chakra manipulation. Hera's expression grew concerned. If Imperial remnants are collecting these texts, they're trying to understand how to combat or replicate abilities like mine, Naruto finished grimly. The question is why now, years after the Emperor's death? Before Hera could respond, her comm unit chimed with an urgent signal. Syndulla here. Quote, Commander, we have a priority transmission from Crownist, came a voice over the comm. Clan Ren is requesting immediate assistance. They're under attack by unknown forces attempting to access their ancestral vaults. Naruto's posture stiffened. The Wrens were one of the few Mandalorian clans who possessed artifacts dating back to the original contact with Uzushio. If the same people who had given Dregon the scroll were now targeting Mandalorian vaults. Tell them help is already on its way, Naruto interjected, rolling up the scroll and securing it within his armor once more. Hera gave him a measured look. This isn't a bounty, Naruto. Whatever's happening may be connected to larger Imperial operations. It's connected to my heritage, he countered. Already moving toward the door. That makes it personal. Wait, Hera called after him. You won't be going alone. We have an operative already en route to Crownist, someone with a vested interest in Mandalorian artifacts. Quote, Naruto paused, his hand on the door frame. Who? Bo-Katan Kryze. The name hung in the air between them. Every Mandalorian knew of Bo-Katan, former regent of Mandalore, leader of the Night Owls. And one of the few who had wielded the Darksaber. Her efforts to reunite the scattered Mandalorian clans had met with limited success after the Great Purge, but her determination never wavered. She doesn't play well with others, Naruto observed, having heard stories of her fierce independence. Neither do you, Hera countered with a knowing smile. But, you both care about preserving your cultural heritage. That should be enough common ground to start. Naruto considered this for a moment before giving a curt nod. Send me her coordinates. I'll rendezvous with her near Crownist. But Hera, I work my way. If she can't accept that, we'll have problems. Just try not to start a clan war, Hera called after him as he strode out. The New Republic has enough political fires to put out already. The Kitsune's shadow dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Crownist system, its modified engines powering down to stealth mode as Naruto scanned for communications signals. According to the coordinates Hera had provided, Bo-Katan's ship should be holding position in the shadow of the system's outer moon, maintaining surveillance on the planet below. There you are, Naruto murmured as his sensors detected a Mandalorian gauntlet fighter running dark. He opened a secure channel, transmitting a recognition code that identified him as an ally without revealing his position to potential hostiles. After a tense moment, the comm crackled to life. Identify yourself and state your business in this system. The voice was female, authoritative, with the distinct accent of Mandalore's upper echelons, clearly Bo-Katan Kryze herself rather than a subordinate. Naruto Uzumaki, responding to the situation on Crownist at Commander Syndulla's request, he replied, keeping his tone professionally neutral. Though I have my own interest in whoever's targeting Mandalorian artifacts. A brief silence followed before the response came, noticeably cooler than before. The Fox, I've heard of you. Your armor is Mandalorian, but your methods, less so. Naruto detected the subtle challenge in her words. Traditional Mandalorians often viewed his unique fighting style with suspicion, too dependent on abilities they didn't understand, too far removed from their ancient combat traditions. Results speak for themselves, he countered. What's the situation planetside? Unknown hostiles breached Clan Ren's ancestral vault 8 hours ago, Bo-Katan replied, professionalism overriding any personal reservations. They extracted multiple artifacts and data stores before departing in a modified Imperial light cruiser. I've been tracking their communications, waiting for reinforcements before pursuit. You have them now, Naruto stated, bringing his ship alongside hers, close enough for visual confirmation of his presence. What were they after specifically? According to Countess Ren, they targeted a section of the Vow LT containing relics from the old Mandalorian exploratory period, particularly items connected to a system called Uzushio. Naruto's grip tightened on his controls. First Dragon's Scroll, now this. The pattern was becoming clearer and more disturbing. I know Uzushio, he said carefully, measuring how much to reveal. It was my ancestral homeworld before its destruction. These artifacts connect our people's histories. Through the viewport, he could see Bo-Katan's ship adjusting position, angling to get a better look at his vessel. The Kitsune's shadow was clearly Mandalorian in its basic design, but its modifications reflected the same hybrid nature as its pilot, traditional foundations enhanced with technology unknown to most of the galaxy. That explains the rumors, Bo-Katan replied after a thoughtful pause. They say you fight like no other Mandalorian, that you can create duplicates of yourself and manipulate energy with your hands. Some call it Force use, but it doesn't match Jedi techniques. It's not the Force, not exactly, Naruto clarified. It's called Sage's Resonance, a bloodline ability passed down through my clan. Similar principles, different application. Convenient, came the skeptical response. And what's your interest in these artifacts? Personal collection, profit. The accusation wasn't subtle, and Naruto felt a flash of irritation. Preservation. These artifacts are the last remnants of my people's history, just as the Mandalorian relics are part of yours. I tracked them down to keep them out of dangerous hands, like whoever hit Clan Ren's vault. Before Bo-Katan could respond, both their ships, sensors pinged simultaneously. The Imperial light cruiser had exited hyperspace at the far side of the system, apparently unaware of their presence. Discussion continues later, Bo-Katan stated, her ship's engines flaring to life. They're heading for the outer asteroid field, likely a temporary hiding spot to examine what they've stolen. Naruto powered up his own systems, the Kitsune's shadow humming with energy. I'll approach from below their sensor range. Your gauntlet has better armaments. You draw their attention while I infiltrate. Bold of you to assume you're taking point on this operation, Bo-Katan replied, though her ship maintained position rather than rushing ahead. What's your infiltration plan? Their shields will be up. Instead of answering directly, Naruto engaged his ship's unique cloaking system, a modification that dampened not just visual and sensor signatures but energy readings as well. It wouldn't render him completely invisible, but it would reduce detection range significantly. I don't need their shields down to get aboard, he stated confidently. Just keep their attention focused on you for 3 minutes. After that, target their primary sensor array. It'll create a blind spot on their starboard side. A moment of silence followed before Bo-Katan's reluctant acknowledgement came through. 3 minutes, not a second more. And Uzumaki, if this is some elaborate scheme to claim these artifacts for yourself, you'll learn why Clan Kryze was once feared throughout the sector. With that final warning, her gauntlet fighter accelerated toward the Imperial cruiser, weapons systems powering up. Naruto guided his own vessel in a wide arc, approaching from the opposite vector. His mind already shifting into the focused state needed to use Sage's resonance at its full potential. As Bo-Katan engaged the cruiser, drawing blaster fire with impressive piloting maneuvers, Naruto extended his senses beyond his ship. The Sage's resonance allowed him to perceive energy fluctuations at considerable distances, including the unique signatures of individual life forms aboard the cruiser. 23 crew members, mostly concentrated in the command deck and engineering sections. 4 others in what appeared to be a secure laboratory area, likely examining their stolen treasures. Naruto plotted his approach carefully, timing his movement with Bo-Katan's attack patterns. As her gauntlet fighter executed a daring strafing run across the cruiser's main battery, drawing all attention forward. The Kitsune's shadow slipped into the blind spot created by the larger ship's own hull configuration. Kurama, take control and maintain position 50 meters from their hull, Naruto instructed his astromech. Be ready for rapid extraction on my signal. The droid beeped affirmatively as Naruto moved to the ship's airlock, securing his helmet and checking his equipment. This would require precision timing and perfect execution. He needed to board the cruiser, locate the artifacts, and extract without alerting the entire crew to his presence. Placing his hand against the inner airlock door, Naruto closed his eyes, focusing his energy. The distinctive marks on his cheeks darkened slightly as he entered a partial Sage mode, not the full transformation that would be immediately recognizable to anyone familiar with his abilities, but enough to enhance his physical capabilities and sensory perception. When Bo-Katan scored a direct hit on the cruiser's sensor array, Creating a momentary disruption in their defensive systems, Naruto made his move. Rather than using a traditional jetpack, he channeled energy through his body in a technique his ancestors had called the body flicker, a burst of speed so rapid it appeared almost like teleportation to untrained observers. The distance between his ship and the cruiser's hull vanished in an instant as Naruto landed silently on the larger vessel's exterior. Magnetic clamps in his boots secured his position as he placed a specialized cutting tool against a maintenance hatch, not a standard breaching charge that would trigger alarms, but a device of his own design that used concentrated energy to phase through molecular bonds. Within seconds, he was inside the cruiser's outer hull, sealing the enter-Y point behind him to prevent atmospheric alerts. The maintenance shaft was narrow, barely large enough for a humanoid in armor to navigate, but it provided access to the ship's internal systems while bypassing standard security measures. Through his enhanced senses, Naruto tracked the movement of crew members throughout the vessel. Most remained focused on the ongoing battle with Bo-Katan, but 2 security personnel were moving toward his position, likely responding to a minor anomaly in the environmental systems caused by his entry. Drawing a vibroblade from his vambrace, Naruto waited until the security team passed beneath his position in the maintenance shaft. With precise timing, he removed a ceiling panel and dropped silently behind them. Before either could react, he struck with H-measured force, disabling rather than killing, rendering both unconscious with targeted pressure point strikes. Dragging their unconscious forms into a nearby storage compartment, Naruto continued toward the laboratory section where he sensed the stolen artifacts being examined. His connection with Bo-Katan's ship confirmed she was maintaining the distraction, her gauntlet fighter executing increasingly aggressive attack patterns while staying just out of range of the cruiser's heavy weapons. The laboratory section was sealed behind reinforced doors with advanced security protocols, standard Imperial design meant to contain sensitive research. For most infiltrators, this would present a significant obstacle. For someone with Naruto's unique abilities, it was merely a delay. Forming a specific hand sign, he created a single energy construct, a perfect duplicate that materialized beside him in a flash of subdued orange light. No words were needed between them. The construct immediately moved to a nearby terminal, interfacing with the ship's systems to create a security override while Naruto maintained vigilance for approaching personnel. When the doors slid open, Naruto dismissed the construct, absorbing the information it had gathered during its brief existence, another aspect of his abilities that few understood. Inside the laboratory, 4 figures in modified Imperial uniforms looked up in surprise from their work. 3 were clearly scientists or technicians, but the 4th, a tall woman with cybernetic enhancements visible along her temple and jaw, reached immediately for a weapon. Mandalorian, she hissed, recognition flashing in her eyes as she drew a heavy blaster pistol. How did you? She never finished the question. Naruto's vibroblade embedded itself in the control panel next to her, causing a shower of sparks that momentarily distracted all 4 Imperials. In that instant, he was among them, moving with the enhanced speed of Sage Mode. The first technician fell to a precise strike to the sternum, the second to a sweep of the legs followed by a controlled blow to the head. The third managed to activate an alarm before Naruto's armored forearm connected with his throat, cutting off both the cry for help and his consciousness. Only the cybernetic woman remained standing, her pistol now aimed directly at Naruto's helmet. Impressive, she acknowledged, her voice carrying the crisp accent of Imperial Core Worlds. But ultimately futile. You're too late. We've already extracted what we need from these artifacts. Naruto's gaze shifted to the examination tables behind her, where several Mandalorian and Uzushio relics lay partially disassembled. Among them, he recognized a ceremonial bracer bearing the spiral pattern of his clan. One of the original pieces created when Mandalorian iron working techniques had been combined with Uzushio chakra infusion. What exactly do you need from them? Naruto questioned, his voice dead calm despite the blaster aimed at his head. The woman's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on him, scanning his armor with analytical precision. The connection between Mandalorian iron and the energy manipulation techniques of Uzushio. The Empire discovered its potential years ago, but the research was interrupted by recent political developments. You mean your emperor died and your Death Star exploded? Naruto clarified flatly. Twice. A thin smile crossed her face. A temporary setback. The knowledge contained in these artifacts will help us restore proper order to the galaxy. Beginning with the elimination of anomalies like you, Fox of Mandalore. The use of his moniker confirmed Naruto's suspicions. They knew who he was, possibly what he was. The alarm continued to blare throughout the ship, and through his sage's resonance, he could sense multiple armed teams converging on the laboratory. You won't succeed, Naruto stated with absolute certainty. Others have tried to weaponize these techniques. It never ends well for them. The woman's smile widened, revealing teeth that had been replaced with metallic implants. Perhaps they lacked proper motivation. Or proper subjects. With unexpected speed, she fired her blaster, not at Naruto, but at the artifacts behind him. The shot struck an ancient scroll, igniting the parchment instantly. Naruto lunged forward, simultaneously trying to extinguish the flames and subdue the Imperial officer, but she was already retreating through a secondary door, sealing it behind her. Prioritizing the preservation of irreplaceable knowledge, Naruto quickly smothered the burning scroll, assessing the damage with growing concern. The text was partially destroyed, but enough remained to confirm his fears. It contained instructions for infusing living subjects with combined Mandalorian iron and chakra techniques, a forbidden practice that had been abandoned centuries ago due to its catastrophic effects on test subjects. The approaching security teams were seconds away. Working quickly, Naruto gathered the remaining artifacts, securing them in specialized containers built into his armor. Through his comm link, he contacted both Kurama and, reluctantly, Bo-Katan. I've secured most of the artifacts, but we have a bigger problem, he reported, moving toward an exterior wall of the laboratory. These Imperials aren't just collecting relics, they're reviving forbidden techniques for weaponization. And they know who I am. Bo-Katan's response was immediate and pointed. Extract now. Their weapons systems are powering up for a hyperspace jump. Quote, rather than arguing, Naruto placed a specialized charge against the exterior wall, one designed to create a controlled breach that would minimize decompression effects. As security forces began cutting through the laboratory's main door, he detonated the charge, creating an opening just large enough for a person in armor to pass through. The vacuum of space beckoned beyond the breach, but Naruto stood his ground, channeling energy through his body to anchor himself against the decompression. When the security team finally breached the laboratory door, they found only swirling debris and a hole in the hull, their quarry and most of their stolen artifacts gone. Outside the cruiser, Naruto used controlled bursts of chakra to propel himself toward the waiting Kitsune's shadow, his armor protecting him from the brief exposure to vacuum. As he approached his ship, the Imperial cruiser's engines flared bright blue, preparing for the jump to hyperspace. They're escaping. Bo-Katan's frustrated voice came through his comm as her gauntlet fighter made one final strafing run across the cruiser's bow. Let them go, Naruto replied, reaching High's ship and boarding through the emergency airlock. We have what they wanted most, and now we know what they're planning. As the Imperial vessel disappeared into hyperspace, leaving them alone in the asteroid field, Naruto directed Kurama to rendezvous with Bo-Katan's ship. This mission had suddenly become much more complicated than a simple artifact recovery, and despite their differences, he needed her knowledge of current Mandalorian politics to understand the full scope of the threat. The gauntlet fighter approached cautiously, matching velocity with the Kitsune's shadow as both ships maintained position among the asteroids. A secure transmission request flashed on Naruto's console, Bo-Katan requesting visual communication rather than just voice. Accepting the transmission, Naruto removed his helmet, facing the holographic image of Bo-Katan Kryze that materialized before him. Her armor was traditional Mandalorian in design, painted in the blue and silver colors of her house, with the distinctive owl insignia of her night owls prominently displayed. Her helmet rested on the console beside her, revealing sharp features framed by short red hair, and eyes that assessed him with calculating intensity. So, she began without preamble, "You're the fox. Younger than I expected." Naruto met her gaze without flinching. "And you're exactly as I expected, Lady Kryze." Slig. Narrowing of her eyes acknowledged the deliberate use of her title. "What did you recover from the cruiser?" Instead of answering immediately, Naruto placed the artifacts on a scanner built into his ship's console, transmitting detailed images to Bo-Katan's vessel. 7 artifacts total, 3 Mandalorian, 4 from Uzushio. The most valuable is this. He held up the partially burned scroll. Instructions for a forbidden technique that combines Mandalorian iron working with chakra infusion to enhance living subjects. It was abandoned centuries ago because it killed most test subjects and drove the survivors insane. Bo-Katan studied the images with growing concern. And Imperial remnants want this technology. For what purpose? Super soldiers, most likely, Naruto replied grimly. Troops with abilities similar to mine, but artificially induced and controllable. If they succeed, they could create warriors capable of challenging even trained Mandalorians, Bo-Katan finished. The implications clear in her hardened expression. Are Force users. An uncomfortable silence settled between them as both considered the strategic nightmare such development would represent, not just for Mandalorians or Force sensitives, but for the fragile peace the New Republic was struggling to maintain. We need to track them back to their base of operations, Bo-Katan stated finally. Quote, cut this off at the source before they can implement whatever they're planning. Naruto nodded in agreement, though he sensed an unasked question in her assessment. You're wondering if I can be trusted with this, given my unique heritage. Bo-Katan's gaze sharpened. You claim Mandalorian armor yet wield powers unknown to our traditions. You call yourself preservator of artifacts yet operate outside clan structures. And now you reveal connection to techniques that could threaten everything we've fought to rebuild. Yes, Uzumaki, trust is very much in question. Rather than responding with defense or anger, Naruto calmly reached for something secured at his hip, a cylindrical object that Bo-Katan immediately recognized as a hollow recording device. Activating it, he placed it on the console between them. A holographic image flickered to life. An elderly Mandalorian in traditional armor bearing markings of Clan Eldar, one of the oldest houses dating back to before the Mandalorian Wars. The recording was clearly decades old, but the audio remained clear as the elder spoke. I, Tiber Eldar, do hereby witness and confirm the adherence to the Risalnair by Naruto Uzumaki, last son of the Whirlpool clan. Though his methods honor traditions beyond our own, he has demonstrated courage, strength, loyalty to his clan, however diminished, defense of his adopted family, education in our ways, and speech in our tongue. His unique abilities stem not from sorcery or corruption, but from a bloodline that once fought honorably alongside Mandalorian warriors. Let no true follower of the way challenge his right to wear the armor he has earned through combat and sacrifice. The recording ended, leaving a weighted silence between them. Bo-Katan's expression had shifted from open suspicion to thoughtful reassessment. Tiber Eldar disappeared during the Great Purge, she noted carefully. He was keeper of ancient histories, respected even by those who opposed House Kryze's reforms. He saved me when Imperial forces destroyed the last Uzushio settlement, Naruto explained, his voice containing a hint of emotion for the first time in their conversation. Taught me Mandalorian in ways alongside the techniques of my ancestors. When he fell to Imperial hunters, I inherited his knowledge and his mission, to preserve what remains of both our cultures. Bo-Katan studied him for a long moment before reaching a decision. I still don't fully trust you or your methods, Uzumaki. But our immediate goals align, and these artifacts belong to both our heritages. We'll work together, for now. Naruto accepted this conditional alliance with a nod. The Imperials will have secondary facilities. They wouldn't risk keeping all their research in one location. I can use the sage's resonance to track energy signatures from these artifacts to others like them. And I have contacts among scattered Mandalorian clans who can report unusual Imperial activity near their territories, Bo-Katan added. We start with what we know, the cybernetic woman you encountered. Her modifications were distinctive. Imperial cyberneticist core, Naruto confirmed. Advanced models not seen since before Endor. Whoever's funding this operation has significant resources and technical expertise. Bo-Katan's expression hardened with determination. Then we begin immediately. Rendezvous at He's coordinates in 6 hours. It's a secure location where we can examine these artifacts properly without Imperial interference. As the transmission ended, Naruto leaned back in his pilot's seat. Considering this unexpected turn of events, working with Bo-Katan Kryze would be challenging. her reputation for fierce independence and uncompromising standards was well earned. But facing an enemy, seeking to weaponize the combined heritage of both their peoples left little choice. Set course for the rendezvous point, Kurama, he instructed his astromech. And run a complete analysis on these artifacts, especially residual energy signatures we can track. As the Kitsune's shadow moved away from the asteroid field, Naruto carefully secured the recovered artifacts in his ship's vault. The ancient scroll with its partially burned instructions troubled him most, not just for the dangerous knowledge it contained, but for what it represented. The original alliance between Mandalorian explorers and Uzushio chakra users had been founded on mutual respect and exchange of knowledge. What these Imperial remnants sought to create was a perversion of that relationship, weaponizing shared heritage into something that would destroy rather than preserve. Naruto's reflection appeared in the polished beskar of his vambraces, the distinctive facial markings of his bloodline a reminder of everything he had lost and everything he still fought to protect. Whatever came next, one thing was certain: the Fox of Mandalore would not allow the last remnants of his people's legacy to become tools for those who had once sought to exterminate them. As the stars elongated into the blue swirl of hyperspace, Naruto mentally prepared for the complicated partnership ahead. Bo-Katan Kryze might not trust him fully, but she would soon learn what Imperial remnants had discovered too late on Concordia. Underestimating the last Mandalorian sage was always a fatal mistake. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Echoes of Uzushio. The abandoned Mandalorian outpost on Concordia's far side remained untouched since the Great Purge, its reinforced durasteel walls bearing the scars of Imperial bombardment. Mist curled around the structure's weathered foundations, obscuring the entrance where two ships now rested side by side, the sleek, modified Kitsune's shadow and Bo-Katan's angular gauntlet fighter. Inside, the main chamber had been hastily converted into a makeshift analysis laboratory. Ancient artifacts recovered from the Imperial cruiser lay arranged on a central table, illuminated by portable lights that cast long shadows across walls still adorned with faded Mandalorian murals. The contrasting styles of the artifacts told a story few in the galaxy remembered: Mandalorian beskar pieces ith swirling Uzushio patterns etched into their surfaces, scrolls bearing script from both cultures intertwined, ceremonial weapons designed to channel both physical and spiritual energy. Bo-Katan circled the table with measured steps, her armor gleaming dully in the dim light. She'd removed her helmet but maintained a guarded posture, one hand never straying far from her blaster. Her gaze alternated between the artifacts and Naruto, who stood opposite her, his own helmet resting beside an ancient bracer. These connections between our peoples, she began, picking up a beskar medallion etched with a spiraling whirlpool pattern. They're not mentioned in any standard historical records. Naruto nodded, his blue eyes reflecting the dim light as he adjusted a scanner over a partially damaged scroll. The alliance was deliberately kept secret, even from most Mandalorians. My ancestors valued privacy, sometimes to the point of paranoia. For good reason, apparently, Bo-Katan remarked, examining the medallion's craftsmanship with an expert eye. If the Empire discovered this connection early enough to target your people specifically. It wasn't their first attempt, Naruto replied, his voice carrying an edge of old pain. The ancient Sith tried to exploit Uzushio's techniques during the Old Republic era. Then the Separatists during the Clone Wars. The Empire just succeeded where others failed. Bo-Katan's attention sharpened at this revelation. You speak as if you've studied these historical records personally. Instead of answering directly, Naruto activated a small holoprojector built into his vambrace. A three-dimensional representation of the damaged scroll appeared between them, its contents magnified and enhanced. Sections of ancient text rotated slowly, revealing combinations of early Mandalorian script and flowing Uzushio calligraphy. This section describes the first contact, Naruto explained, highlighting specific passages. Approximately 8 centuries ago, Mandalorian explorers discovered Uzushio during an expansion beyond known hyperspace routes. Instead of conquest, they found common ground with its inhabitants, both warrior cultures that valued clan, combat prowess, and honor. Bo-Katan studied the projected text with growing interest. My education included extensive Mandalorian history, yet I've never seen mention of this encounter. Because it was recorded only in the chronicles of Clan Eldar, Who led the expedition? Naruto replied. Even among Mandalorians, some knowledge was reserved for specific lineages. He gestured to another section of the scroll, where diagrams depicted armor pieces with intricate patterns flowing through them. What began as cultural exchange evolved into something more profound. The Uzushio chakra techniques, when combined with Mandalorian iron working methods, created artifacts with unique properties, armor that could channel natural energy, weapons that responded to their wielder's intent. Bo-Katan's skepticism remained evident in her posture, though curiosity had replaced open distrust in her eyes. And these abilities of yours? This, Sage's resonance, it comes from this Uzushio heritage. Naruto nodded, deactivating the hologram. A Kekkei Genkai, a bloodline limit passed down through certain clans. The Sage's resonance allows me to sense and manipulate natural energy in ways similar to, but distinct from, what Force users do. Convenient that these abilities can't be verified by any surviving witnesses, Bo-Katan observed, though her tone lacked the accusatory edge it had carried during their first meeting. A faint smile crossed Naruto's face, the first she had seen from him. You've already witnessed some of them firsthand. How do you think I boarded the Imperial cruiser without a jetpack or breaching charges? Before Bo-Katan could respond, a series of sharp beeps came from the scanner examining the damaged scroll. Naruto's attention immediately shifted, his expression turning grave as he studied the results. This isn't just a historical record, he said, his voice tightening. It contains technical specifications for the forbidden technique, the one combining Beskar infusion with chakra network modification in living subjects. Bo-Katan moved to his side, professional interest overriding lingering suspicion. What exactly does this technique entail? In its original form, it was meant to create armor that became part of the wearer. Beskar fused with specific chakra points to enhance natural abilities, Naruto explained, indicating diagrams that resembled a humanoid circulatory system overlaid with metallic nodes. But the early experiments failed catastrophically. The process drove most subjects insane, their chakra networks corrupted by the Beskar infusion. He manipulated the scanner controls, revealing a section of text that had survived the Imperial officer's attempt to destroy the scroll. The technique was a bondo, net and forbidden. After the third generation of test subjects developed a condition called berserker resonance, uncontrollable rage states that eventually consumed them completely. Bo-Katan's expression darkened as the strategic implications became clear. An Imperial remnants want to revive this technique, creating warriors with these abilities but without the moral or mental stability to control them. Precisely, Naruto confirmed grimly. Disposable super soldiers with artificially enhanced abilities, loyal only to their Imperial masters. His scanner beeped again, this time with a different tone. Naruto tapped several controls, brow furrowing as he interpreted the results. There's something else here, a trace energy signature embedded in the scroll itself. Not natural decay, but some kind of tracker. Bo-Katan straightened immediately, hand moving to her blaster. They let us take these artifacts. We've been compromised. As if confirming her assessment, Naruto's modified astromech rolled into the chamber with an urgent series of beeps and whistles. The droid's sensor dish rotated frantically as it projected a tactical display showing multiple ships entering the moon's atmosphere. 3 light shuttles, approaching from the north, Naruto interpreted, already reaching for his helmet. Professional configuration. Bounty hunters are mercenaries, not standard Imperial troops. Bo-Katan moved with practiced efficiency, securing her own helmet while simultaneously activating the outpost's ancient defense systems through her Vambrace controls. This facility has limited automated turrets still operational. They won't stop a determined assault, but they'll slow them down. Naruto gathered the artifacts, quickly securing them in specialized containment units built into his armor. We need to split up, divide their forces. I'll take the artifacts through the eastern tunnels while you create a diversion with your ship. Bold of you to assume I'd let those artifacts out of my sight. Bo-Katan countered, her modulated voice carrying unmistakable authority even through her helmet. Especially with an unknown quantity like yourself. Despite the urgency of their situation, Naruto paused, meeting her visored gaze directly. Lady Kryze, we can debate trust issues after we're not surrounded by mercenaries. But if you have a better tactical suggestion, I'm listening. The distant sound of repulsor lifts echoed through the ancient structure as the approaching shuttles neared their position. Bo-Katan considered their options with rapid tactical assessment before grudgingly nodding. The eastern tunnels connect to an old mining complex, she conceded. Narrow passages, multiple exit points, good ground for evasive movement. But I'm sending coordinates for rendezvous. If you don't appear within 2 standard hours, I'll hunt you myself. Naruto accepted this compromise with a curt nod. Have your ship ready for atmospheric exit. These aren't the only hunters they'll send. As Bo-Katan moved toward the main entrance to prepare her diversion, Naruto turned to his astromech. Kurama, return to the shadow and initiate emergency protocol 3. Break atmosphere and hold at the designated coordinates. The droid beeped affirmatively before rolling away, its modified treads carrying it swiftly through the outpost's corridors. Naruto watched it go, knowing the specially programmed astromech would execute his instructions perfectly, one of the advantages of a droid he'd rebuilt and coded himself after rescuing its damaged core from an Imperial scrapyard. With the artifacts secured and their escape routes planned, Naruto moved toward the eastern corridor, pausing only to place small devices at strategic points throughout the main chamber. Not standard explosives, but specialized chakra tags of his own design, another element of his heritage that few in the galaxy would recognize or understand. As he disappeared into the shadows of the ancient tunnels, the first sounds of Bo-Katan engaging the approaching mercenaries echoed behind him, precise blaster fire and the distinctive whine of her jetpack igniting. The diversion had begun, and with it, their desperate race to escape with secrets both Mandalorian and Uzushio had kept hidden for centuries. The eastern mining tunnels beneath Concordia's surface twisted in labyrinthine patterns, a testament to the Mandalorians' thorough exploitation of the moon's natural resources generations before. Water dripped from the ceiling in steady rhythm, creating shallow puddles that reflected the dim emergency lights still functioning after decades of abandonment. Naruto moved through these passages with practiced stealth, his armor's sensors compensating for the limited visibility. Through his sage's resonance, he could sense pursuers entering the tunnel network, 4 distinct signatures moving in coordinated pairs. Not standard mercenaries, but trained hunters, with the discipline to maintain communication silence and systematic search patterns. Imperial Special Forces training, most likely, though operating under the guise of independent contractors. Naruto paused at a junction where 3 tunnels diverged, considering his options. The leftmost passage led toward the surface but would be the most obvious choice for escape. The center tunnel descended deeper into the mining complex, eventually connecting to maintenance shafts that could prove either valuable hiding places or deadly traps. The right passage extended horizontally, following what appeared to be an ancient Beskar vein long since mined out. Decision made, Naruto took the center path, descending into darkness. As he moved deeper, the tunnel's artificial supports gave way to natural rock formations, evidence that this section had been abandoned when more profitable veins were discovered elsewhere. The perfect place for what he needed to do next. Finding a small alcove partially hidden by fallen rocks, Naruto crouched and removed a containment unit from his armor. Inside was the damaged scroll, the most dangerous of the artifacts they'd recovered, and the one the Imperials would want most. Placing it carefully on a flat stone, he formed a series of hand signs in rapid succession. Shadow clone technique, he whispered, channeling chakra with practiced precision. In a near-silent puff of smoke, an identical copy of himself materialized beside him, a solid energy construct with its own consciousness and physical capabilities, though significantly less durable than the original. Without needing verbal instructions, the clone carefully secured the scroll in its own armor while Naruto placed a different artifact, a simple Beskar medallion, in the original containment unit. You know the route, Naruto said quietly. The clone nodded, its expression matching his own determination. Northwest passage, surface exit near the abandoned processing facility, then 2 clicks to the secondary rendezvous point. I'll make sure they follow. Be careful, Naruto cautioned. These aren't ordinary hunters. Neither are we, the clone replied with a hint of the confidence that characterized Naruto's inner thoughts if not always his outward demeanor. As the clone departed toward a different tunnel, Naruto remained in the alcove, closing his eyes to enter a deeper meditative state. The markings on his cheeks darkened slightly as he extended his sage's resonance to its fullest range, mapping the positions of all life forms within the tunnel complex. His pursuers had split up, 2 following Bo-Katan's diversion toward the surface, 2 continuing methodically through the eastern tunnels. And his clone was already drawing attention, deliberately leaving track, evidence of passage for the hunters to follow. Satisfied with the deception, Naruto emerged from the alcove and continued deeper into the mining complex, following routes that would eventually lead to an abandoned emergency exit on the moon's far side, far from both the outpost and the expected escape vectors Imperial tacticians would anticipate. As he navigated the increasingly narrow passages, Naruto's mind drifted to another time when he'd used these same tunnels for a very different purpose, not escape, but training. 15 years earlier, Concordia Mining Complex. Again, Tiber Eldar's voice echoed through the cavern, the aged Mandalorian standing firm despite the decades of battle evident in his scarred armor and the stiffness of his movements. 11-year-old Naruto pushed himself up from the rocky floor, ignoring the scrapes on his palms and the exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. 3 days they'd been in these tunnels, with minimal rest and rationed weight. An endurance test designed to push his limits beyond what any ordinary child could endure. I can't maintain the focus, Naruto admitted, frustration evident in his young voice. The natural energy here is different from Uzushio, more raw, less balanced. Tiber approached, his weathered face stern but not unkind as he removed his training helmet. Gray hair cropped short in military fashion framed a face marked by decades of warfare, yet his eyes remained sharp and attentive. Uzushio is gone, Attica, he said, using the Mandalorian term for little one, that had become his customary address for his young charge. Its balanced energies, its harmonious environment, these were luxuries your ancestors used to develop their techniques. But a true Mandalorian, like a true sage, adapts to whatever environment they find themselves in. He gestured to the rough cave walls around them. Concordia is harsh. Its natural energy flows through veins of Beskar and other metals, making it more volatile, more difficult to harness. But if you can master it here, I can master it anywhere, Naruto finished, understanding dawning in his bright blue eyes. Tiber nodded approvingly. The ancient alliance between our peoples wasn't formed because we were the same, but because we were different. Mandalorians brought structure, discipline, the warrior's path. Uzushio brought flexibility, harmony with natural forces, the sage's wisdom. Together, they created something neither could achieve alone. Naruto considered this as he dusted himself off, the oversized training armor Tiber had odified for him clanking awkwardly with each movement. Is that why the Empire destroyed Uzushio? Because of what we could do together with Mandalorians. A shadow passed over Tiber's face. The Empire fears what it cannot control. Force users, chakra wielders, anyone with abilities that might challenge their dominion, all were systematically eliminated. The Purge of Mandalore and the Destructio of Uzushio were different campaigns but shared the same purpose. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, the weight of his armor gauntlet substantial yet carefully controlled. You carry both legacies now, Attica. The last with Uzushio blood who also walks the Mandalorian path. That makes you both uniquely powerful and uniquely vulnerable. Determination hardened in Naruto's young face. I won't let either legacy die. Then show me, Tiber challenged, stepping back into a combat stance. Show me how a Mandalorian sage adapts to his environment. Use the energy of Concordia, not as your ancestors would have on Uzushio, but as you must here and now. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself as Tiber had taught him. The distinctive facial markings he'd been born with, 3 whisker K lines on each cheek that marked him as a potential sage, darkened slightly as he reached out to the natural energy surrounding them. Instead of fighting against Concordia's harsh, metallic energy flows, he surrendered to them, letting their patterns guide his perception rather than imposing his will. When his eyes opened again, they had changed. The pupils slitted vertically like a fox's, the blue irises now rimmed with gold. Sage mode, adapted to Concordia's unique energy signature. Tiber smiled with genuine pride. Now you're learning, Attica. Now you're becoming who you were meant to be. The memory faded as Naruto sensed one of his pursuers changing direction, breaking from their methodical search pattern to move with purpose. They'd found his trail, likely detecting the distinctive energy signature of the artifacts he carried despite his efforts to mask it. Increasing his pace, Naruto navigated through increasingly narrow passages, occasionally using his enhanced street strength to clear fallen debris blocking his path. The tunnel system grew more primitive the deeper he went, evidence that these sections dated back to the earliest Mandalorian mining operations on the moon. After 20 minutes of evasive movement, Naruto emerged into a natural cavern where ancient mining equipment lay abandoned, partially reclaimed by mineral deposits from the steadily dripping ceiling. Massive stalactites hung overhead like stone daggers, while pools of accumulated water reflected the dim light from bioluminescent fungi that had colonized the walls in the absence of artificial illumination. Here, he paused to reassess his situation. Through the sage's resonance, he confirmed his clone had successfully drawn away one pair of pursuers, leading them on a chase that would eventually end with them finding only the decoy medallion. Bo-Katan had engaged the surface team, her combat prowess evident in the diminishing life signatures Naruto could sense even at this distance. But one hunter remained problematic, changing direction repeatedly, as if somehow tracking Naruto's actual position despite his careful concealment. This wasn't standard Imperial training or typical bounty hunter methodology. This was someone with specialized tracking abilities, possibly even rudimentary force sensitivity. Naruto moved to the center of the cavern, where a pool of clearer water offered the best view of all possible approach vectors. Rather than continuing to flee, he decided to confront this persistent pursuer directly, controlling the engagement on his terms rather than being caught in a less advantageous position. He didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, a figure appeared at one of the tunnel entrances, humanoid but distinctive in both equipment and posture. Hunter wore armor that combined elements of stormtrooper design with more practical modifications for independent operation. Most notably, where a standard helmet would be, this pursuer wore a leased sensor array wrapped around their head, with multiple lenses and scanning devices all oriented forward like the compound eyes of an insect. Impressive evasion techniques, the hunter called out, voice modulated through their breathing apparatus but distinctly female. Most quarry don't recognize they're being tracked until it's too late. Naruto remained silent, assessing his opponent subtly reaching for a specialized tool on his belt. Not a weapon, but a countermeasure device he developed for situations exactly like this. The bounty on you just doubled, the hunter continued, circling the edge of the cavern with measured steps. Alive and unharmed, with all artifacts intact. My employer seems quite interested in your particular talents. Your employer sent you to die, Naruto replied flatly, activating the device in his palm, a chakra disruptor that would interfere with any energy-based tracking systems within a 20-meter radius. The hunter's sensor aura, immediately emitted a high-pitched whine, several of its components sparking as they overloaded. With a grunt of pain, she tore the device from her head, revealing features that confirmed Naruto's suspicions. Distinctive cranial implants similar to those he'd observed on the Imperial officer aboard the cruiser. Cyberneticist core augmentation, Naruto noted aloud. Mark 7 sensory enhancement, NT suite. Discontinued after test subjects reported psychotic episodes from sensory overload. The Empire always did prioritize results over safety. The hunter's expression darkened, her hand moving to the blaster at her hip. You know your Imperial technology. Surprising for a supposed Mandalorian. I make it my business to understand my enemies, Naruto replied, making no move toward his own weapons. The artifacts you're tracking have been distributed among multiple carriers. You've wasted your time pursuing me. A cold smile crossed the hunter's face. Have I? My orders were quite specific. Return with either the artifacts or you. Preferably both, but you alone would satisfy my employer's immediate needs. This revelation shifted Naruto's tactical assessment. Not just artifact retrieval, but capture of a living sage, which aligned with the forbidden technique described in the scroll. They needed someone with active chakra pathways to reverse engineer the process. I'm curious, Naruto said, subtly shifting his stance to a more defensive position. How much did they tell you about what they're planning? Did they mention the survival rate for their previous test subjects? Uncertainty flickered across the hunter's face before professional detachment reasserted itself. I don't ask questions about my employer's research. I deliver what they pay for. Then you're not just a hunter. You're a recruiter for their experiments, Naruto concluded. How many have you delivered to their laboratories? How many died screaming as Beskar was infused into their chakra networks? The hunter's composure cracked slightly, her finger tensing on her blaster's trigger. You're stalling. The artifacts. Now. Instead of complying, Naruto formed a quick sequence of hand signs. 2 shadow clones materialized beside him in identical bursts of subdued orange energy, each adopting a slightly different combat stance. The hunter fired immediately, her shot striking one clone dire. CTLY in the chest, causing it to disappear in a puff of smoke rather than collapsing like a wounded organic being would. Her momentary confusion gave Naruto the opening he needed. Moving with the enhanced speed of partial Sage mode, he crossed the distance between them before she could adjust her aim, striking her weapon hand with precision. The blaster clattered to the stone floor as Naruto seized her arm, using her own momentum to flip her onto her back beside the central pool. Before she could recover, one of his clones pinned her shoulders while Naruto himself knelt beside her, removing a small device from his belt, a neural scanner of his own design, based on technology he'd salvaged from an abandoned Imperial research facility years before. This won't hurt, he assured her, placing the device against her temple. Unless you resist. What are you doing? She demanded, struggling against the clone's firm grip. Learning what you know about your employer's operation, Naruto explained, activating the scanner. I could beat it out of you the traditional Mandalorian way, but this is faster and more reliable. The device hummed softly as it interfaced with her cybernetic implants, bypassing organic neural pathways to access the data stored directly in her enhanced memory centers. The hunter's eyes widened in panic as she realized the implications. You can't. The security protocols, it'll trigger. Her warning came too late. The scanner beeped in alarm as it encountered sophisticated security measures embedded in her implants. Before Naruto could disengage, the hunter's body went rigid, her eyes rolling back as foam formed at the corners of her mouth. Suicide protocol, Naruto cursed, immediately deactivating the scanner and checking her vital signs. But the damage was done. Whatever failsafe had been programmed into her cybernetics had triggered, shutting down her autonomous functions within seconds. As the clone released her now limp form, Naruto mined the limited data his scanner had managed to extract before the security measures activated. Most files remained encrypted, but one set of coordinates had been captured, a location in the outer rim, far from established hyperspace routes. At least we have something, he murmured, storing the coordinates in his armor's navigation system. Respectful even toward enemies, Naruto arranged the fallen hunter's body in a dignified position before continuing through the cavern toward his planned exit route. Her death troubled him, not because he valued her life particularly, but because it demonstrated the extremes to which his opponents would go to protect their operation. Neural suicide protocols were reserved for the most sensitive Imperial operations, far beyond standard security measures for typical bounty hunters. Whatever they were planning with the forbidden technique, it warranted the highest level of secrecy, which made it all the more crucial that he and Bo-Katan uncover the full scope of their activities before they succeeded. 2 hours later, Naruto emerged from a concealed exit on Concordia's far side, where the moon's rugged terrain gave way to a vast plain of metallic sand, residue from centuries of mining operations. The twin suns hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape and turning the metallic particles into a sea of crimson and gold. His clone had dissipated after successfully leading its pursuers into a prepared trap, transferring its memories and experiences back to Naruto in the process, another advantage of his unique abilities that conventional hunters couldn't anticipate. The scroll was secure, the decoy had served its purpose, and according to his sage's resonance, no other pursuers remained active in his vicinity. Raising his arm, Naruto activated the secure communication channel in his vambrace. Fox to Night Owl. Extraction point reached. Status report. Static crackled briefly before Bo-Katan's voice responded. Professional and clipped. Night Owl confirms. Hostiles neutralized at primary location. Rendezvous at coordinates Alpha 9 in 30 minutes. Copy that. Naruto acknowledged, noting the precision of her timing, exactly at the 2-hour mark she'd specified earlier. Whether coincidental or deliberately calculated to remind him of their conditional trust arrangement, it was characteristically Bo-Katan. As he began crossing the metallic plane toward the rendezvous point, Naruto's thoughts turned to their next steps. The coordinates he'd extracted from the hunter's IM plants represented their only solid lead, but pursuing it without additional intelligence would be reckless. They needed more information about the facility, its defenses, and most importantly, the PR. Ogress of the Imperial Remnant's research into the forbidden technique. For that, they would need specialized help, someone with access to intelligence networks beyond either New Republic or Mandalorian channels. Someone who operated in the shadowy spaces between legitimate authority and the criminal underworld. Someone like Marinara. The thought of seeking out the notoriously reclusive and Asian broker brought a complex mixture of emotions. Their last encounter, nearly 2 years ago during an operation on Nar Shaddaa, had ended with mutual professional respect but personal complications neither had been prepared to address. Yet if anyone could help them unravel the mystery of the Imperial Remnant's interest in Uzushio artifacts, it would be the half-Pantoran tactician whose intellect was matched only by her ability to navigate the galaxy's most dangerous political landscapes. By the time Bo-Katan's gauntlet fighter appeared on the horizon, Naruto had formulated a plan. As the ship descended, sand and metallic particles swirling around its landing struts, he steeled himself for what would likely be a contentious discussion. Bo-Katan Kryze was not someone who relinquished operational control easily, particularly to allies she didn't fully trust. The ship's ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss, revealing Bo-Katan standing at its top, helmet removed but armor still bearing evidence of recent combat. Carbon scoring across her left pauldron and chest plate suggested she'd encountered more resistance than she'd acknowledged in her brief communication. "You made it," she observed as he approached, her tone neutral but posture still guarded. "With the artifacts." "Most of them," Naruto confirmed, boarding the ship and securing the ramp behind him. "I had to sacrifice the medallion as a decoy. But the scroll and other pieces are intact." Bo-Katan's eyes narrowed slightly. "And your pursuers?" 3 teams total, Naruto reported, following her into the ship's compact command center. 2 neutralized non-lethally. 1 triggered a neural suicide protocol when I attempted to extract information. This caught Bo-Katan's attention, her tactical assessment immediately shifting. "Imperial Cyberneticist Corps," Naruto nodded, impressed by her quick deduction. "Similar augmentations to the officer we encountered on the cruiser. I managed to extract coordinates before her implants shut down her autonomic functions." He transferred the data to the ship's navigation system, a star map materializing above the central console. A single point illuminated in the outer rim. Far from established trade routes or inhabited systems. Megiddo sector, though not Megiddo itself, Bo-Katan noted, studying the map with practiced precision. Uninhabited system with a dwarf star and 3 gas giants. No strategic value I'm aware of. Perfect location for a covert research facility, Naruto observed. But we need more intelligence before investigating. Facility layout, defensive capabilities, personnel complement. Bo-Katan's posture subtly tensed, her hand resting on the edge of the console. The New Republic might have intelligence assets in the sector. Your contact, Commander Syndulla, would go through official channels, Naruto interrupted, alerting oversight committees and generating documentation that could be compromised. We need someone more discreet. Understanding dawned in Bo-Katan's eyes, followed immediately by skepticism. You have a specific asset in mind. It wasn't a question, but Naruto answered anyway. Marinara, information broker, tactical analyst, specialized in Imperial Remnant operations. Based on Kanto Bite when she's not moving between safe houses. The half-Pantoran. Bo-Katan's tone conveyed both recognition and wariness. I've heard of her. Former Imperial tactical officer who defected with a significant cache of classified intelligence. Not someone known for charitable assistance. She'll help, Naruto stated with quiet confidence. We have history. Bo-Katan's eyebrow raised slightly at this revelation, her analytical mind immediately reassessing various factors. Complicated history, I presume. Rather than elaborating, Naruto moved to the ship's communications array, beginning to configure a specialized encryption protocol. She's the best source for what we need, and she has personal reasons to oppose Imperial Remnant operations, especially those involving unique abilities or bloodlines. After a moment of consideration, Bo-Katan nodded curtly. Your operation, your contact. But, I'll want to verify any intelligence she provides independently. I wouldn't expect anything less, Naruto replied, a hint of respect evident in his tone. Despite their differences in approach, Bo-Katan's tactical caution was something he could appreciate. As the gauntlet fighter lifted off from Concordia's surface, rising through the atmosphere toward the darkness of space, Naruto sent a brief, encrypted message to a calm frequency few in the galaxy knew existed. Fox seeking shadow, Uzushio echoes heard in Imperial corridors. Kanto Bite, Zephyr Lounge, Third Sunset. Asterisk. The message would reach Mara through channels she monitored regularly, using terminology established during their previous collaborations. Whether she would respond, and how quickly, would depend on factors beyond his control. But the reference to Uzushio would capture her attention. Few things intrigued Marinara more than connections between seemingly disparate historical elements, particularly those with strategic implications for the current political landscape. Set course for Kanto Bite, Naruto instructed, turning to Bo-Katan. My ship will follow on autopilot. We should arrive shortly before local sunset. Bo-Katan took the pilot's seat, her hands moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. You're certain she'll meet us? Naruto settled into the co-pilot's position, beginning pre-jump calculations. Not certain, no, but the possibility of accessing information about Uzushio techniques will be too tempting for her to ignore completely. As the stars elongated into the blue swirl of hyperspace, Naruto allowed himself a moment of reflection. The last time he'd seen Marinara, they'd parted with unresolved tension and unspoken words. Bringing Bo-Katan into that dynamic added an other layer of complexity to an already precarious situation. Yet professional necessity outweighed personal complications. If Imperial remnants succeeded in weaponizing the forbidden technique, the consequences would extend far beyond individual discomfort, potentially threatening both the fragile peace established after Endor and the cultural legacies Naruto and Bo-Katan each fought to preserve in their own ways. Kanto Bite glittered beneath the setting sun, its casino district awash in artificial light and ostentatious wealth. Unlike the rugged terrain of Concordia or the utilitarian architecture of New Republic outposts, this coastal resort city on Cantonica represented excess in its purest form, a playground for the galaxy's elite, where the political upheavals of recent years seemed distant concerns compared to the latest fashions or gambling trends. Bo-Katan's gauntlet fighter had docked at a private landing pad on the city's outskirts, far from the main spaceport. Re-identification protocols and security scans might raise unwanted attention. From there, they'd made their way into the entertainment district, Bo-Katan having exchanged her distinctive armor for civilian attire that nonetheless allowed access to concealed weapons. Naruto had opted for a similar approach, though the whisker markings on his cheeks made complete anonymity impossible regardless of attire. The Zephyr Lounge occupied the uppermost level of a towering casino complex, its transparent walls offering panoramic views of the city and ocean beyond. Unlike the chaotic gaming floors below, the lounge cultivated an atmosphere of refined exclusivity, soft ambient music, private seating areas separated by sound-dampening fields, and service droids programmed to recognize status as much as credits. Excessive, Bo-Katan observed quietly as they were escorted to a reserved booth overlooking the western horizon, where the sun had just begun its final descent. The credits spent on a single evening here could outfit a Mandalorian combat unit. Naruto nodded in acknowledgement but offered a different perspective. It's strategic. Information brokers like Mara choose places like T.S. because security is guaranteed by the establishment itself. The wealthy and powerful who frequent these lounges value discretion above all else, perfect conditions for sensitive conversations. Their booth, positioned with clear sightlines to both the main entrance and emergency exits, featured a privacy field that activated automatically as they were seated. A service droid approached immediately, its polished chrome chassis reflecting the sunset's golden hues. Welcome to the Zephyr Lounge. May I provide refreshments while you await the third member of your party? The droid's vocal programming carried the cultured accent favored in core world high society. Tony Ray White for the lady, came a voice from behind the droid. Corellian whiskey, neat, for the gentleman. And Tevraki whiskey with ice for myself. The newcomer stepped around the droid with casual confidence, her appearance striking in its controlled elegance. Mara Nara stood slightly taller than average, her slender frame draped in a high-collared jacket of midnight blue that complemented her distinctive blue-toned skin, heritage of her Pantoran mother. Her dark hair was swept back from a face marked by both beauty and calculation. With intelligent eyes that missed nothing and full lips currently curved in a knowing smile. Most notable were the geometric markings on her face, yellow lines that formed patterns across her cheekbones and forehead. Traditional Pantoran familial indicators adapted with a personal aesthetic that spoke to her mixed heritage. "You're earlier than expected," Naruto observed as Mara claimed the seat opposite them. Positioning herself with the same tactical awareness they had demonstrated. "Your message lacked subtlety," she replied, her voice carrying a distinctive cadence. That blended core world precision with occasional outer rim colloquialisms. Uzushio references tend to attract attention, particularly when paired with Imperial activity. Her gaze shifted to Bo-Katan, assessing the Mandalorian woman with practiced efficiency. Lady Bo-Katan Kryze, former regent of Mandalore, leader of the Night Owls, proponent of the new Mandalorian movement while maintaining traditional warrior values. Your presence suggests this matter involves Mandalorian interests directly, not merely Naruto's personal crusade. Bo-Katan met the information broker's evaluating look with one of her own. Your dossier on me is thorough. I wonder what else your databases contain regarding Mandalorian affairs. A subtle smile touched Mara's lips. Information is my currency, Lady Kryze. I trade in it selectively and protect my sources thoroughly. The service droid returned with their drinks, placing each with programmed precision before retreating beyond the privacy field. Mara raised her glass in a subtle toast before taking a measured sip. Now, she continued, setting her drink aside, let's dispense with the circling and discuss why the Fox of Mandalore and the heir to House Kryze would seek me out together, a pairing I wouldn't have anticipated given your respective methodologies. Naruto leaned forward slightly, his usually guarded expression softening fractionally in Mara's presence. Imperial remnants are collecting artifacts connected to both Uzushio and ancient Mandalorian culture, specifically, items related to techniques combining chakra manipulation with Beskar forging. Mara's expression remained carefully neutral, though Naruto detected the subtle tension in her posture that indicated genuine interest. The Whirlpool Codex techniques. I was under the impression those were largely theoretical, historical curiosities rather than viable methodologies. Not theoretical, Naruto corrected, glancing briefly at Bo-Katan before continuing. We recovered a scroll containing specific instructions for the forbidden technique, Beskar infusion into living subjects with active chakra networks. For the first time, genuine surprise registered Mara's features, a momentary widening of eyes quickly controlled. That would explain certain intelligence patterns I've been tracking. Increased Imperial remnant activity in sectors with Historica. Connections to early Mandalorian expansion. Targeted raids on private collections containing pre-Empire artifacts. She withdrew a small data chip from an inner pocket of her jacket, placing it on the table between them. 3 months ago, I documented Imperial operatives extracting material from the ruins of a research facility on Mirkor, a planet notable for its force-repelling properties. At the time, I assumed they were harvesting Ysalamiri specimens for anti-Jedi operations. The chip projected a small hologram showing Imperial troops loading sealed containers onto a transport shuttle. The timestamp and location data confirmed Mara's account, but what caught Naruto's attention was the insignia visible on the containers, a modified Imperial Research Corps symbol with distinctive additions he recognized from historical records of Uzushio. That's not standard Imperial classification, he noted, enhancing a section of the hologram. That's a modified version of an Uzushio clan symbol. The spiral pattern indicates connection to natural energy manipulation techniques. Bo-Katan leaned forward, studying the projection with increasing concern. Combined with Mandalorian runes, indicating metallurgical experimentation. They're not hiding their intentions, at least not in their internal documentation. Mara deactivated the hologram, her expression turning serious. They're implementing Project Berserker, an Imperial research initiative theoretical until now, designed to create enhanced soldiers with abilities resistant to force-based countermeasures. You have information on this project? Bo-Katan questioned, suspicion evident in her tone. Fragments, Mara admitted. Reference codes in classified communications, resource allocations without specified purposes. Selective recruitment of specialists in neurology and metallurgy. Nothing concrete until your mention of the forbidden technique provided the missing connection. She turned her attention fully to Naruto. Her professional detachment slipping slightly to reveal genuine concern. If they've recovered actual implementation protocols for Beskar infusion into chakra networks, they're significantly closer to viable results than my intelligence suggested. Naruto nodded grimly. The scroll we recovered contains complete procedural specifications, including modifications attempted after the initial failures. With modern medical technology to compensate for the biological rejection issues, they could succeed where the ancient practitioners failed. Mara finished, the strategic implications clearly calculating behind her eyes. Creating soldiers with abilities similar to yours, Naruto, but without the natural limitations or ethical constraints. Bo-Katan's expression hardened. Weapons, not warriors, lacking the training, tradition, and discipline that gives meaning to such abilities. Precisely, Mara agreed, surprising both of them with her immediate concurrence with the Mandalorian perspective. The philosophical underpinnings of both Force traditions and chakra methodologies emphasize balance and responsibility. This imperial application would strip away those elements entirely, creating something fundamentally unstable. She retrieved her data chip, securing it within her jacket once more. I have coordinates for a facility that matches the operational profile we're discussing. Deep space installation, officially decommissioned after the Battle of Jakku but showing recent power signatures and supply chain activity consistent with renewed research operations. We have coordinates as well, Naruto revealed, extracted from a hunter sent to capture either me or the artifacts we recovered. Mara's eyebrow raised slightly. They're targeting you specifically. Hat suggests they're aware of your unique abilities and their connection to the techniques they're attempting to replicate. The hunter had specialized tracking systems designed to detect chakra signatures, Naruto confirmed. When I attempted to extract intelligence from her cybernetic implants, a neural suicide protocol activated. This information seemed to resonate particularly strongly with Mara, whose expression darkened. Neural implant security at that level indicates highest priority classification, beyond even standard Imperial Black Operations protocols. She considered their situation for a moment before making a decision that surprised both Naruto and Bo-Katan. I'm coming with you. Bo-Katan's objection was immediate. This isn't a data-gathering operation. We're planning to infiltrate and neutralize a hostile research facility with unknown defensive capabilities. Precisely why you need me, Mara countered smoothly. My Imperial tactical training, combined with specific knowledge of research facility security protocols, provides operational advantages neither of you possess. Additionally, I can identify which data systems contain valuable intelligence worth extracting before destruction. Before Bo-Katan could argue further, Naruto intervened. She's right. Mara's knowledge of Imperial systems is unparalleled, and her combat abilities are more substantia than her current occupation might suggest. The subtle compliment drew a brief, genuine smile from Mara. Kind of you to remember, Fox. The exchange wasn't lost on Bo-Katan, whose analytical gaze shifted between them, reassessing dynamics and potential complications. After a moment of consideration, she offered a compromise. You can accompany us to the facility location for preliminary reconnaissance. Combat operations will be determined based on situational assessment. Mara accepted this with a graceful nod. Reasonable terms. My ship is docked in a private hangar on the northern plat. Oh, less monitored than the main spaceport. We should depart separately to avoid drawing attention. Imperial intelligence assets are particularly active in luxury centers like Kanto Bight. As they finalized arrangements for rendezvous in orbit, Naruto noticed subtle shifts in both women's behaviors, professional cooperation layered over careful assessment of one another. Bo-Katan's instinctive, territorial nature as a Mandalorian leader balanced against Mara's analytical approach to relationships as strategic assets. Between them, he represented both a common ally and a potential point of contention. Though neither would acknowledge this directly, The sunset had faded to deep twilight by the time they concluded their meeting, the city's artificial illumination creating a star-like panorama across the visible coastline. As they prepared to leave, Mara placed a hand briefly on Naruto's arm, a gesture casual enough to seem unremarkable but lingering just long enough to convey personal significance. "It's good to see you again, Naruto," she said quietly. Even under these circumstances, before he could respond, she had turned away, moving toward the exit with the fluid grace that characterized her movements. Bo-Katan watched this interaction with sharp awareness, though her expression revealed nothing of her thoughts as they followed at a discreet distance. "Your informati on-broker seems unusually invested in this operation," she observed once they had left the lounge and entered a less populated corridor leading to service lifts. Naruto maintained a careful neutral expression. "Mara has personal reasons to oppose Imperial Remnant activities, particularly those involving experimentation on beings with unique abilities or bloodlines. Personal reasons connected to her Pantoran heritage," Bo-Katan pressed, demonstrating her own intelligence-gathering capabilities. Among other factors, Naruto acknowledged without elaborating further. Some aspects of Mara's history weren't his to share, particularly the details of Imperial interest in her mixed bloodline during her early military service. Bo-Katan accepted this limited response with pragmatic focus on their mission. Her tactical knowledge will be valuable, assuming her information is accurate. "Trust remains conditional, as it should be," Naruto agreed. "For all of us." As they made their way back to the landing pad where their ship waited, Naruto's thoughts turned to the complex path ahead. Three distinct individuals with different methodologies, histories, and motivations, united temporarily against a common threat but each carrying separate agendas beneath their stated objectives. The Mandalorian warrior princess fighting to preserve her culture's legacy and independence. The Pantoran tactical genius using information as both weapon and shield. And himself, the last Mandalorian sage, carrying the weight of two extinct traditions while forging his own path between them. Against them, Imperial remnants seeking to corrupt ancient knowledge for purposes of domination and control, the antithesis of everything each of them valued in their own ways. Whatever personal complications might exist between them, this shared opposition would have to be sufficient common ground for the dangerous mission ahead. The deep space between star systems held a quality of silence. Unlike anything planetside, a vast emptiness where light traveled for years without touching solid matter, where the boundary between life and death seemed as thin as a starship's hull. In this particular region of the outer rim, that emptiness felt especially profound. The nearest inhabited system over 2 standard days' travel at maximum hyperdrive capacity. 3 ships maintained formation at the coordinates extracted from the Imperial Hunter's implants, Bo-Katan's Gauntlet Fighter, Naruto's Asterisk Kitsune's Shadow, and Nara's vessel, the Silent Calculation. The latter was a modified Naboo yacht, its elegant lines disguising considerable combat capabilities and specialized equipment for intelligence-gathering operations. Within Bo-Katan's ship, which served as their temporary command center, a holographic projection displayed their current position relative to nearby stellar phenomena. According to conventional star charts, nothing of significance existed at these coordinates. A remote area of space with no planets, asteroid fields, or other natural features worth noting. Sensor analysis confirms artificial gravity distortions consistent with a large structure, Mara reported, manipulating the holographic display to highlight anomalous readings. Approximately 3 kilometers in diameter, maintaining a stealth field that bends light around its exterior, explaining its absence from visual confirmation. Bo-Katan studied the readings with practiced tactical assessment. Imperial Deep Space Research Station, Geonosis class design but heavily modified. Used prima Riley for classified weapons development during the height of the Empire. The installation should be visible at this range, regardless of conventional stealth measures, Naruto observed, his concern evident. Something is actively manipulating sensor data and visual perception. Mara nodded in agreement. Energy patterns suggest technological components, but with unusual fluctuations of never encountered in standard Imperial stealth systems. A moment of contemplative silence followed as each processed the implications. It was Naruto who voiced the connection they all suspected. They've already implemented aspects of the forbidden technique, he stated grimly. Not just researching the scrolls, but actively applying the principles to their technology. The energy fluctuations match patterns described in the Whirlpool Codex, chakra-infused materials creating resonance fields that affect perception. Bo-Katan's expression hardened. If they've progressed to practical applications in their defensive systems, then their research into living subjects is likely well advanced. Mara completed the thought. We need to assess exactly what stage they've reached before determining our approach. Naruto considered their options, weighing various tactical approaches against the unique challenges presented. Standard infiltration methods won't work against chakra-sensitive security systems. They'll detect conventional approach vectors regardless of stealth technology. A slight smile touched his lips as inspiration struck. But they won't be looking for someone using their own techniques against them. Bo-Katan and Mara both turned to him with questioning expressions. In response, Naruto activated his own data pad, displaying the partially damaged scroll they'd recovered. The forbidden technique works by creating resonance between Beskar-infused nodes and natural energy flows, he explained, highlighting specific sections of the ancient text. Their security system must operate on similar principles, creating a perceptual barrier that interfaces directly with sensory input rather than simply bending light or deflecting sensors. Mara grasped his thinking immediately. If you can match that resonance frequency using your sage abilities, I can effectively become invisible to their detection grid, Naruto confirmed. Not by conventional stealth, but by harmonizing my energy signature with their defensive field. Bo-Katan's skepticism remained evident. That's theoretical at best. If your assessment is incorrect, then I'll be detected and deal with the consequences. Naruto finished. But it's our best option for initial reconnaissance without alerting the entire facility. After weighing alternatives, Bo-Katan reluctantly conceded. Preliminary reconnaissance only. Map the facility's exterior configuration, confirm entry points, and assess obvious defensive capabilities. No engagement with personnel, no internal infiltration until we have complete tactical assessment. Naruto accepted these parameters with a nod. I'll need to modify my armor to enhance its natural resonance with chakra flows. The preparations will take approximately 2 hours. As they finalized the operation parameters, Mara pulled Naruto aside while Bo-Katan consulted with her ship's navigation systems. You're not telling her everything, Mara observed quietly, her perceptive eyes searching his. The risks of what you're proposing. Naruto met her gaze steadily. The technical details wouldn't reassure her. You mean the fact that harmonizing your chakra signature with their security field could potentially expose you to the corrupted energy they're manipulating, Mara clarified, her voice barely above a whisper. Creating a temporary connection between your natural abilities and their perverted version. A slight smile acknowledged her accurate assessment. Your understanding of chakra theory has improved since our last encounter. I make it my business to understand things that matter, she replied, genuine concern evident beneath her professional demeanor. Be careful, Naruto. If they detect your presence through this connection, they won't just trigger alarms, they might attempt to directly influence your chakra network through the resonance field. I know the risks, he assured her. But it's our best chance to gather critical intelligence without alerting them to our presence. Sometimes the path of greatest risk offers the clearest view. Mara recognized the subtle reference to Uzushio philosophy, a perspective they had discussed during quieter moments of their previous collaboration. Her expression softened briefly before professional composure reasserted itself. I'll monitor energy fluctuations from my ship, she stated. If I detect anomalous patterns suggesting they've locked onto your signature, I'll signal immediately. With operational roles established, they separated to prepare for their respective tasks. Naruto returned to the Kitsune's shadow, where his equipment and the specialized components needed for the modifications awaited. As the airlock sealed behind him, he allowed himself a moment of reflection on the complex dynamics developing between his two allies. Bo-Katan Kryze, direct, honor-bound, shaped by generations of Mandalorian tradition and personal loss, approaching alliance as a tactical necessity while maintaining clear boundaries of trust and authority. Nara, adaptable, calculating, formed through a crucible of mixed heritage and imperial defection, Yuan. Relationships as complex strategic assets while guarding her deeper motivations behind layers of professional detachment. Both formidable in their own ways. both essential to confronting the threat they faced, and both watching him with eyes that saw beyond his carefully maintained exterior, though each perceiving different aspects of what lay beneath. Pushing these thoughts aside, Naruto focused on the immediate task. The modifications required to his armor would demand perfect concentration, balancing Mandalorian craftsmanship with Uzushio energy manipulation techniques in a manner his mentor Tiber Eldar had taught him years before. A fitting preparation for confronting enemies who sought to corrupt that very connection for purposes of domination and control. Hours later, as he co-MP led the final adjustments to his armor, Naruto's mind returned to the ancient scroll and its warnings about those who had attempted the forbidden technique centuries ago. Their failure hadn't stemmed from technical inadequacy but fundamental misunderstanding, treating the connection between chakra and Beskar as merely technological rather than spiritual. A warning the Imperial remnants, with their emphasis on weaponization above all else, would almost certainly ignore. Just as they had ignored the warnings about so many other powers they had sought to control, from the Kyber crystals to Chi-powered the Death Star to the Force itself. Some lessons, it seemed, the Empire remained determined not to learn, regardless of how many times history proved the catastrophic consequences of such arrogance. The void between stars seemed to ripple subtly as Naruto moved through it, propelled by controlled bursts from his modified jetpack. Unlike standard Mandalorian equipment, his incorporated elements of Uzushio design that allowed for near-silent operation and enhanced maneuverability through chakra channeling rather than conventional fuel alone. From the perspective of Bo-Katan's ship, monitoring his progress through specialized sensors, his form appeared to phase in and out of visual detection, sometimes clearly visible against the backdrop of distant stars, other times seeming to merge with the emptiness itself as his chakra resonance synchronized with the installation's perceptual barrier. Naruto maintained partial sage mode throughout the approach, the distinctive markings on his cheeks darkened within his helmet as he carefully modulated his energy output. Too much would disrupt the delicate harmony with the installation's field, too little would leave him vulnerable to conventional detection methods. The balance required constant adjustment, a mental discipline as demanding as any physical challenge. Through his enhanced perceptions, the invisible research station gradually revealed itself, not as a solid structure suddenly appearing, but as a pattern of energy fluctuations resolving into coherent form. The overall configuration confirmed Bo-Katan's assessment of a modified Geonosis-class station, though with significant structural additions that deviated from standard Imperial architecture. Most notably, the central hub of the station featured a distinctive array of spire-like projections arranged in a spiral pattern, reminiscent of ancient Uzushio temple designs but rendered in cold durasteel and composite materials rather than the natural stone and wood of the original structures. These spires appeared to channel energy throughout the station's perimeter, creating the resonance field that masked its presence from conventional detection. As Naruto circled the installation at a safe distance, mapping its configuration through both visual observation and chakra sensing, he identified several potential entry points, maintenance airlocks, sensor arrays with access panels, and a shuttle bay currently sealed but designed for periodic supply deliveries. More concerning were the defensive systems, not just standard Imperial turbolasers and shield generators, but specialized emplacements whose energy signatures pulsed with the same corrupted resonance as the perceptual barrier. Weapons designed not just to destroy approaching cells but to specifically disrupt force or chakra-based abilities, direct applications of the forbidden technique in technological form. Having completed a full circuit of the installation, Naruto prepared to withdraw when his enhanced senses detected an approaching vessel emerging from hyperspace at the station's designated arrival coordinates. Maintaining his position within a blind spot between sensor arrays, he observed as the newcomer, a modified Imperial shuttle, transmitted clearance codes and proceeded toward the main docking bay. The shuttle's design incorporated elements not standard to Imperial craft, reinforced hull plating with distinctive patterns etched into its surface, reminiscent of the artifacts they'd recovered from Clan Ren's vault. As the docking bay doors parted to admit the vessel, Naruto caught a glimpse of the interior, a loading area where several figures in specialized containment suits supervised the movement of large cylindrical tanks into the station. The brief view revealed enough to confirm their worst fears. The tanks contained humanoid forms suspended in nutrient solution, their unconscious bodies partially modified with metallic components integrated directly into their flesh. Test subjects for the forbidden technique, being delivered for the next phase of experimentation. Before the doors closed completely, Naruto captured detailed images through his helmet's enhanced visual systems, ensuring the intelligence would be available for tactical planning regardless of what happened next. As the shuttle completed its docking procedures, he detected a surge in the station's energy field, likely security protocols activating in response to the new arrivals. Using this momentary fluctuation as cover, Naruto began his withdrawal, carefully maintaining his resonance with the perceptual barrier until reaching a safe distance where conventional stealth measures would suffice. Throughout the return journey to their ships, he continued processing what he'd observed, correlating the visual evidence with historical knowledge of both Imperial research methodologies and the forbidden technique's original implementation. By the time he reached Bo-Katan's gauntlet fighter and re-entered through its airlock, he had formulated a preliminary assessment of both the facility's capabilities and the progress of their research program. Implications were grave, far beyond what they had initially suspected when discovering the Imperial interest in Uzushio artifacts. Bo-Katan and Mara awaited him in the ship's command center, our expressions reflecting different aspects of professional concern, Bo-Katan's tactical focus evident in her rigid posture, Mara's analytical mind clearly processing multiple contingencies as she monitored sensor data. "What did you find?" Bo-Katan asked directly as Naruto removed his helmet, revealing facial markings still darkened from Sage Mode use. Rather than immediately answering, Naruto transferred the visual data from his helmet to the central holographic display. Images of the station appeared in three-dimensional detail, rotating slowly to show all aspects of its construction. Modified Geonosis class research station, approximately 3 kilometers in diameter, he reported, highlighting specific sections of the projection. 17 distinct laboratory modules surrounding a central power core. Defensive systems include standard Imperial turbolasers, but also these. He magnified a section showing the specialized weapons emplacements. Energy signature indicates chakra, resonant technology designed to disrupt force or sage abilities. Effective range unknown, but likely substantial. Mara studied the images with growing concern. The structural modifications don't match any Imperial design protocols I'm familiar with. These spiral configurations especially. They're implementing architectural elements directly from Uzushio temples, but perverted for technological purposes. The resonance field isn't just for concealment, Naruto confirmed grimly. It's actively drawing natural energy from surrounding space, channeling it through these modified conduits for use in their experiments. He brought forward the most disturbing images, the glimpse he'd captured of the test subjects being transported into the facility. Bo-Katan's expression hardened at the sight, while Mara's normally controlled features reflected genuine horror. "They're already at human testing stage," Mara noted, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Those implants match theoretical designs for chakra network modification I encountered in classified research during my Imperial service, never implemented due to ethical concerns even under Imperial standards." "How many subjects?" Bo-Katan asked, her tone clipped as she processed the tactical implications. "At least 12 in this shipment alone," Naruto reported. "Unknown how many already inside the facility, but the infrastructure suggests capacity for hundreds." A heavy silence settled over them as the full scope of the operation became clear. This wasn't a small research initiative or isolated experiment, it was a comprehensive program to develop an entirely new class of enhanced soldiers, combining the worst aspects of Imperial technology with corrupted applications of ancient Uzushio techniques. "They must be stopped," Bo-Katan stated with absolute conviction. "Not just delayed or disrupted, completely neutralized." For once, Mara offered no counterargument or qualification to this direct approach. "Agreed. The data I've analyzed from these scans confirms my worst suspicions. If they succeed in stabilizing the Beskar infusion process in living subjects, they'll create weapons beyond conventional military response capabilities." Naruto finished. "Soldiers resistant to both conventional and force-based countermeasures, potentially able to track and neutralize specific targets across vast distances through chakra resonance." The implications hung unspoken between them, Such forces would represent an existential threat not just to the New Republic's fragile governance, but specifically to individuals like Naruto himself, whose unique abilities would make them priority targets for elimination. Bo-Katan initiated tactical planning mode on the ship's systems, the holographic display. Why shifting to highlight potential approach vectors and defensive vulnerabilities? Direct assault is impractical with our current resources. 3 ships against a station of that size, with specialized defensive capabilities. Infiltration remains our best option, Mara suggested, already analyzing security protocols evident in the scan data. If we can access their central systems, we could potentially trigger catastrophic overloads in the resonance field generators. Naruto considered both perspectives, weighing tactical necessities against the moral implications of their choices. The test subjects complicate matters. Some may still be salvageable, their modifications reversible if we can extract them before destroying the facility. Bo-Katan's expression reflected the difficult calculus of warfare. Prioritizing rescue operations significantly increases operational risk and potential for failure. If we're detected before reaching critical systems, then everyone dies anyway, Naruto acknowledged. But we have an advantage they won't anticipate. He gestured to the artifacts they'd recovered, specifically the ancient scroll containing details of the forbidden technique. They're working from incomplete information, technical specifications without the philosophical underpinnings that make the technique viable long-term. We understand both. What are you suggesting? Mara questioned, her analytical mind already anticipating his direction. A targeted approach combining our separate strengths, Naruto explained. Bo-Katan creates a diversion with her Gauntlet fighter, hit-and-run attacks on external systems to draw security focus outward. Mara infiltrates through communication systems to access their research databases and extract critical intelligence. Meanwhile, I use the resonance field itself to enter the facility directly, targeting both the central control systems and potential test subject rescue. Bo-Katan's skepticism was evident in her posture. Using their own security field as an entry method is theoretically sound but practically untested. It's also our only option for accessing the facility without triggering immediate lockdown protocols, Naruto countered. Standard infiltration methods would be detected immediately by the chakra-sensitive security grid. Mara studied him with careful assessment, clearly recognizing aspects of his plan that remained unstated. The resonance harmonization you're proposing would require deeper synchronization than your reconnaissance approach. Potentially dangerous levels of connection with their corrupted energy field. Naruto nodded, acknowledging the risk without elaboration. A calculated necessity. Once inside, I can place these at key junction points. He produced several small devices from a compartment in his armor, specialized chakra tags of his own design, combining Mandalorian detonation technology with Uzushio sealing techniques. Disruptor seals, he explained. Designed to break the harmonic resonance of chakra-infused technology. When activated sequentially, they'll create cascading failures throughout the station's specialized systems while leaving conventional life support and containment fields intact. Bo-Katan studied the devices with professional interest despite her reservations. How many would be required for complete system failure? 5. Placed at specific junction points within the central spire configuration, Naruto replied, indicating locations on the holographic display. The resulting disruption would render their modified pawns inoperable and collapse the perceptual barrier, making the station visible to conventional sensors. Exposing them to potential New Republic discovery, Mara noted, the strategic advantages becoming clear. Even if they survived the immediate system failures, they'd lose their critical secrecy advantage. After considering the proposal from multiple tactical perspectives, Bo-Katan finally nodded her agreement. The plan has merit, though significant risks remain. Timeline for implementation. Immediate, Naruto stated firmly. The shuttle delivery I witnessed indicates they're accelerating their research program. Every hour increases the probability of successful test subject conversion. With the broad operational parameters established, they moved to specific preparation phase. Bo-Katan configuring her Gauntlet fighter's weapons systems for precise hit-and-run attacks, Mara preparing specialized slicing equipment designed to penetrate Imperial communications networks, and Naruto modifying his armor for the more intensive resonance harmonization required for direct infiltration. As they worked, Naruto became aware of Mara's periodic glances in his direction, her analytical mind clearly processing variables beyond the immediate tactical considerations. During a moment when Bo-Katan was occupied with ship systems, she approached him directly, voice lowered to ensure privacy. "What aren't you telling us about this resonance harmonization?" she asked directly, intelligence and genuine concern evident in equal measure. "The risk isn't just detection, is it?" Naruto continued his equipment modifications, measuring his response carefully. "The corrupted chakra field they've created doesn't just manipulate energy, it actively seeks compatible networks to influence. For someone with active chakra pathways like mine, it could attempt to override your natural patterns," Mara concluded, horror dawning in her expression. "Initiating the same conversion process they're using on their test subjects." "Temporarily, yes," Naruto acknowledged. "My natural sage abilities should provide sufficient resistance for the operation's duration, but prolonged exposure would be dangerous," she finished, studying him with new understanding. "And you didn't mention this to Bo-Katan because she would reject the plan outright based on theoretical risk assessment." Naruto replied simply, "Sometimes the most direct path requires personal sacrifice." Mara's expression softened momentarily, revealing a depth of connection their professional interaction rarely displayed. The Uzushio philosophy of necessary balance, sacrificing individual safety for collective protection. "You've been studying," Naruto observed, genuine appreciation evident in his tone. A slight smile touched her lips. "I make it my business to understand my associates thoroughly." The brief personal moment ended as Bo-Katan returned to the central area, tactical preparations complete. If she noticed the tension between them, she gave no indication, focused entirely on operational parameters. "My ship's systems are configured for targeted strikes against external communications arrays and sensor clusters," she reported. "Minimal signature until engagement, utilizing the station's own blind spots for approach vectors." Mara smoothly shifted to professional reporting. "Slicing protocols prepared for 3 potential Imperial security configurations. Once communications are disrupted, I can establish backdoor access to their research databases through redundant systems they'll prioritize below defensive restoration. And I'm prepared for direct infiltration," Naruto concluded, securing the final modifications to his armor. "The disruptor seals are calibrated for maximum effect against their specific resonance frequency." As final preparations concluded, the three stood before the tactical display, each recognizing the gravity of what they were attempting. Not just a covert operation or intelligence-gathering mission, but a direct strike against a facility representing catastrophic potential for the galaxy's future stability. "Operation commences in 30 minutes, Bo-Katan stated, donning her helmet with characteristic precision. "May warriors' fortune favor our blades." The traditional Mandalorian battle blessing carried at a tonal weight in this context, a rare acknowledgement of Naruto's status as a warrior worthy of such recognition, despite his unorthodox methods and abilities. As they moved to their respective ships, Naruto felt the weight of both history and future possibilities settling across his shoulders. The ancient scrolls had warned of the consequences when power was divorced from wisdom, when techniques eloped through generations of balanced practice were corrupted for purposes of domination. Now, centuries later, those warnings had materialized into a threat that connected his heritage directly to the present conflict. The Kitsune's shadow powered up silently as he boarded, systems responding to his commands with the precision of long partnership. As the three vessels separated for their assigned approach vectors, Naruto began the meditative process necessary for deep resonance harmonization, preparing not just his equipment but his mind and spirit for what would likely be the most dangerous application of his abilities he had ever attempted. The station awaited, its invisible presence a corruption of everything the ancient alliance between Mandalorians and Uzushio chakra users had originally represented. In confronting it, Naruto would not just be fighting Imperial remnants, but the perversion of his own cultural heritage, a battle with significance far beyond the immediate tactical objectives. As his ship moved into position, he completed the final preparations for what would either be a successful infiltration or a potentially fatal connection with energies never meant to be manipulated as the Imperial researchers had done. Whatever the outcome, the echoes of Uzushio, both its wisdom and its warnings, would guide his path forward into uncertainty. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Temple's Guardian. Darkness and silence surrounded Naruto as he drifted through the void, propelled only by minimal thrusters and the subtle manipulation of natural energy through his modified armor. The Imperial Research Station loomed ahead, invisible to conventional sensors but increasingly tangible to his heightened perception as he entered deeper Sage mode. Its energy signature LSED like a corrupted heartbeat against the backdrop of cosmic stillness. Unlike his previous reconnaissance approach, this infiltration required complete harmonization with the station's resonance field, not merely synchronizing with its frequency, but allowing his own chakra network to interact directly with the corrupted energy patterns the Imperials had created. The risk was profound. Where before he had merely observed the field, now he would become part of it, vulnerable to its influence while exploiting its properties. Commencing primary diversion in 3 minutes, Bo-Katan's voice came through his secure comlink. Terse and focused. Confirm position. Approaching junction point Alpha, Naruto responded, his voice steady despite the growing discomfort as his sage's resonance began interacting with the station's field. Harmonization at 60% and climbing. Mara's voice followed, the subtle concern beneath her professional tone detectable only to someone who knew her well. Energy fluctuations increasing in your vicinity. They're detecting something, but haven't identified it as an intruder yet. Expected, Naruto replied, continuing his approach. Their Ms. register chakra disturbances but classify them as field calibration. Advantage of using their own technology against them. As he drew closer to the massive structure, the station's true form realized in his perception, not through visual confirmation but through the distinctive way its corrupted energy field interacted with his own chakra network. The spiral configuration of the central iris now seemed less architectural and more organic, like tendrils of some vast predatory creature reaching outward to draw energy from surrounding space. Naruto focused on a maintenance access point, identified during his reconnaissance, a small airlock designed for external repairs, connected to service tunnels that bypassed primary security checkpoints. As Bo-Katan's diversion drew near, he initiated the final phase of harmonization, allowing his chakra to fully resonate with the station's field. The sensation was immediately and profoundly disturbing. Where natural energy typically flowed with rhythmic harmony, this corrupted field writhed and twisted unnaturally, its patterns disrupted by technological manipulation and stripped of the balanced properties that characterized true chakra. It felt like plunging into toxic water, necessary for reaching his destination but hazardous to remain submerged in for long. Diversion commencing, Bo-Katan announced, her gauntlet fighter sudden accelerating toward the station's communications array in a strafing run that would appear random to Imperial tactical analysis but was precisely calculated to draw attention and resources away from Naruto's approach vector. Brilliant energy flashed against the void as Bo-Katan's weapons struck the previously invisible station, momentarily disrupting its perceptual barrier and revealing a section of its structure even to conventional sensors. Alarms would be triggering throughout the facility, security protocols activating as personnel scrambled to address the unexpected attack. Naruto seized this moment of disruption, pushing through the maintenance airlock with a controlled application of chakra that bypassed its electronic locking mechanism. The outer door sealed behind him as atmosphere cycled into the small chamber, his armor's systems automatically adjusting to the pressure change while maintaining the delicate resonance with the station's energy field. "I'm in," he reported quietly. Proceeding to first junction point. Confirmed penetration, Mara responded. Security channels show all attention focused on the attack. Bo-Katan's hit-and-run tactics are successfully drawing their defensive resources outward. The inner airlock door slid open, revealing a narrow service corridor illuminated by harsh white emergency lighting. Unlike the sterile uniformity typical of Imperial installations, these passages showed evidence of the station's modified purpose. Conventional durasteel panels interspersed with sections of specialized material etched with patterns reminiscent of Uzushio design but perverted into more angular, aggressive configurations. Naruto moved with practiced stealth, his armor's sound dampening features eliminating any noise while his sage's resonance allowed him to sense personnel long before visual or auditory detection became possible. The combination of Mandalorian training and Uzushio abilities made him virtually undetectable within the facility. so long as the delicate balance of harmonization held. The first warning that something was wrong came not as an alarm or detection, but as a subtle change in the energy flowing around him. The corrupted field seemed to respond to his presence not as an intruder but as a potential component, reaching toward his chakra network with tendrils of influence that sought to infiltrate rather than expel. Naruto paused at a junction, pressing his hand against a wall panel to stabilize himself as the first wave of disorientation struck. His vision blurred momentarily, perception splitting between physical reality and chakra-enhanced awareness in a disjointed manner he hadn't experienced since his earliest training days. "Something's wrong," he whispered into his calm. "The field isn't Saint detecting me, it's attempting to interface." Mara's response came quickly, concern breaking through her professional detachment. "Your chakra signature is showing fluctuations. The harmonization MIGHTB2 complete. Their system is recognizing you as compatible network." Before Naruto could respond, the corridor ahead filled with the sound of approaching footsteps, a security team responding to some alert or scheduled patrol. Pressing himself into a maintenance alcove, he controlled his breathing and focused on stabilizing the increasingly uncomfortable resonance with the station's field. 4 security officers passed his position, their distinctive armor combining standard stormtrooper design with modifications similar to those he'd observed on the hunter who had pursued him on Concordia. Each carried weapons with unusual configurations, not standard blasters but specialized devices with components that pulsed with the same corrupted energy as the station itself. As they passed without detecting him, Naruto caught fragments of their conversation. Subject integration proceeding at 93% efficiency in Group C. Director Valis wants accelerated testing on the combat applications. Still don't understand why we're using these ancient techniques when conventional cybernetics. Because the force resistance properties can't be replicated with standard technology. The Uzushio methodology somehow bypasses force sensitivity while enhancing physical. Their voices faded as they moved beyond his range of hearing, but the information confirmed their worst suspicions. The Imperial Remnant wasn't just researching the forbidden technique, they were actively implementing it, with successful results that warranted combat testing. Naruto continued toward the first junction point, his movement slower and more deliberate as he fought against the growing influence of the station's energy field. The corrupted chakra seemed to whisper against his consciousness, offering power and enhancement if he would only surrender to its influence, a temptation he recognized as similar to what the ancient scrolls had described as berserker resonance. Reaching the first of 5 critical points identified during mission planning, Naruto removed one of his specialized disruptor seals from a compartment in his armor. Unlike standard explosives, the device combined Mandalorian detonation technology with Uzushio sealing techniques, designed to create precise disruption in chakra flow patterns rather than physical destruction. As he secured the device against a junct ion where multiple energy conduits converged, his comm activated with Mara's voice. "I've penetrated their primary research database," she reported, the sound of rapid data processing audible in the background. "Downloading specifications and research logs now. Naruto, their progress is further advanced than we anticipated. They've successfully integrated Beskar microfilaments into chakra networks of 23 test subjects, with 8 showing stable resonance patterns. Survivors?" he questioned, continuing toward the second junction point while maintaining awareness of security movement throughout his section of the station. "Inconclusive," Mara replied. "Subject designations transition from biological monitoring to weapons system integration at successful conversion stage. They're not considering them people anymore, just components." The cold efficiency of Imperial methodology wasn't surprising, but the confirmation fueled Naruto's determination. These weren't just test subjects. They were people being transformed into weapons against their will, their very essence corrupted by the forbidden technique's application. Proceeding deeper into the station's central section, Naruto encountered increasing evidence of the facility's true purpose. Laboratory chambers visible through observation windows contained equipment combining medical technology with metallurgical fabrication systems. In one, technicians monitored diagnostic displays showing what appeared to be chakra network mapping, biological systems represented in 3-dimensional projections with metallic components superimposed at key junction points. Second junction reached, Naruto reported, placing another disruptor seal at a critical intersection of energy conduits. 3 remaining. Bo-Katan, status, maintaining diversion, came her terse reply, the sound of weapons fire punctuating her words. They've deployed fighters, modified TIE configurations with unusual weapon systems. Conventional tactics ineffective against their tracking capabilities. This development concerned Naruto. If the Imperial Remnant had successfully applied the forbidden technique to vehicle weapons systems as well as personnel, their threat level was even greater than anticipated. The timeline for completing their mission had just shortened considerably. Mara, any data on test subject containment locations? He asked, moving with increased urgency toward the third junction point. Central Laboratory Complex, Level 5, she confirmed. Security protocols indicate 27 subjects currently in various stages of processing. Naruto, active conversion procedures are underway on 9 of them right now. The implication was clear, they couldn't simply destroy the facility and escape. Living people were being transformed even as they executed their mission, their bodies and chakra networks being irreversibly altered with each passing minute. Change of plans, Naruto decided, adjusting his route to incorporate the new priority. I'll place the remaining seals, then proceed to level 5 for extraction attempt. That wasn't the mission parameter, Bo-Katan objected immediately. Quote, the facility's destruction was our primary objective. Both can be accomplished, Naruto countered, his tone leaving no room for debate. The disruptor seals will still trigger cascading system failures once activated. But we have an obligation to attempt rescue of victims if possible. A moment of silence followed before Bo-Katan responded, her voice tight but controlled. Acknowledged. My diversion can maintain for approximately 20 more minutes before fuel considerations require withdrawal. Sufficient, Naruto confirmed, reaching the third junction point and placing another seal. Mara, find me the most direct route to level 5 that avoids security concentrations. As Mara transmitted navigational data to his helmet display, Naruto became increasingly aware of the station's energy field strengthening its attempts to interface with his chakra network. The whispers at the edge of consciousness had become more coherent, not quite voices but definitely patterns trying to impose themselves upon his thought processes. The forbidden technique's corrupting influence was designed to override natural chakra flow with artificially imposed patterns, creating soldiers who respond dead to specific resonance frequencies controlled by Imperial command systems. Naruto's natural sage abilities provided significant resistance, but the prolonged exposure was beginning to take its toll. The distinctive markings on his cheeks darkened as he pushed deeper into sage mode, using his natural connection with balanced energy to counteract the corrupted field's influence. This strengthened his abilities but also made him more detectable to any system specifically designed to monitor chakra fluctuations. Approaching the fourth junction point, Naruto encountered his first direct opposition. A security officer with cybernetic enhancements similar to the hunter from Concordia emerged from a connecting corridor, her modified sensory implants immediately locking onto Naruto's chakra signature despite his physical concealment. Intruder in Section Theta, she called into her comm unit, drawing a specialized weapon from her hip holster. Chakra active hostile, implementing containment protocol. The weapon discharged not a conventional energy blast but a pulse of corrupted chakra that disrupted the natural flow patterns around it. Naruto evaded the initial burst, recognizing He technology as designed specifically to incapacitate individuals with active chakra networks by inducing disharmony in their energy flow. Rather than engaging directly, he formed a quick sequence of hand signs, creating 3 shadow clones that materialized around him in identical bursts of orange energy. The security officer's enhanced perception registered the multiple signatures with momentary confusion, her targeting systems attempting to lock onto all 4 simultaneously. This brief hesitation provided the opening Naruto needed. As his clones moved to flank the officer from multiple angles, he channeled chakra into his palm, forming a spiraling sphere of compressed energy, the Rasengan technique, adapted through years of practice to require minimal formation time. The officer fired again, her weapon's discharge striking one clone and causing it to disperse instantly. The remaining clones closed distance rapidly, one seizing her weapon arm while the other executed a sweeping kick to disrupt her balance. Before she could recover, Naruto drove the Rasengan not into her body but into the specialized weapon she carried. The resulting energy discharge sent both of them skidding backward, the weapon disintegrating as the Rasengan's spiraling force overwhelmed its internal components. The officer crashed against a wall panel, her cybernetic implants sparking from the energy urge that had traveled back through the weapon's systems. Naruto regained his footing immediately, moving to secure the unconscious officer before she could recover. Binding her with specialized restraints designed to inhibit both conventional movement and chakra flow, he positioned her in a maintenance alcove where she wouldn't be immediately visible to passing patrols. "Security alert in my sector," he reported into his comm. Single officer neutralized, but her alert likely registered. Proceeding to 4th junction with increased caution. Alert confirmed, Mara responded. Security dispatching additional personnel to your location. Recommend alternate approach vector through maintenance shaft 12B. Following her guidance, Naruto located a service access panel and slipped into the narrow maintenance shaft beyond. These passages, designed for repair droids rather than human technicians, provided more direct routes through the station's structure but required careful navigation in full armor. The 4th junction point lay at an intersection of major power distribution systems, where the corrupted chakra field was particularly dense. As Naruto placed the disruptor seal against the primary conduit, he felt the station's energy patterns shifting around him, not randomly, but with deliberate focus, as if the system itself was becoming aware of his presence and purpose. RGY fluctuations increasing throughout the facility, Mara warned, urgency evident in her voice. They're implementing some kind of station-wide scan, possibly looking specifically for chakra signatures that don't match their established patterns. 4th seal placed, Naruto confirmed, already moving toward the final junction point. 1 remaining, then proceeding to level 5. How much time until the scan reaches my position? Approximately 3 minutes, Mara estimated. But Naruto, there's something else. I've found reference to a primary template in their research logs, a source subject from which they derived their baseline understanding of natural chakra networks. They refer to it as the Hyuga specimen. This unexpected information caused Naruto to pause momentarily, memories from his childhood on Uzushio surfacing with startling clarity. The Hyuga clan had been one of the most prominent families among the chakra users, their distinctive Byakugan ability allowing perception of energy flows invisible to others. He had believed them completely exterminated during the Imperial Purge of Uzushio. Location? He asked, voice tight with controlled emotion. Special containment. Level 6, Mara replied. Heavily secured, designated as critical research asset. Naruto. Records indicate this specimen has been in Imperial custody for over 15 years. 15 years. Spanning back to the original destruction of the Uzushio settlement. The implications were staggering. Someone with Hyuga blood had survived the purge, only to be captured and used as a research subject for developing the forbidden technique's modern application. Change of priorities, Naruto decided, adjusting his route once more. Final seal first, then level 6 for the Hyuga specimen, level 5 for other test subjects if time permits. Bo-Katan's objection was immediate and expected. The mission parameters continue to expand beyond our original objectives. Extraction of multiple subjects significantly increases risk of detection and mission failure. I understand the tactical concerns, Naruto acknowledged, continuing toward the final junction point with increased speed. But this isn't just about current test subjects. If they have a Hyuga in containment, they have access to one of the most advanced chakra perception bloodlines from Uzushio. The strategic value of extraction outweighs the additional risk. A moment of silence followed before Bo-Katan responded, her tactical assessment evidently reaching the same conclusion despite her reservations. Acknowledged. Diversion will continue as long as possible, but extraction window is narrowing. These modified TIE fighters are displaying unusual pursuit capabilities. The final junction point was located near the central core of the station, where the spiral configuration of energy conduits converged into a massive processing hub. As Naruto approached, he encountered increased security presence, not just standard officers but individuals with more extensive modifications, their movements displaying the enhanced speed and precision that suggested successful application of the forbidden technique. Avoiding direct confrontation, Naruto utilized the maintenance passages and ventilation systems to maneuver around security checkpoints. The station-wide scan Mara had warned about was now active, sweeping through sections in methodical pattern. He could feel it approaching, a wave of intensified energy designed to detect and isolate unauthorized chakra signatures. Reaching the final junction point with moments to spare, Naruto quickly placed the fifth disruptor seal against the primary convergence node where multiple conduits joined the central processing hub. As he activated its passive monitoring system, he felt the scan wash over his position, a prickling sensation across his chakra network as the station's security system attempted to classify and identify his energy pattern. For a critical moment, the outcome hung in balance. Would the harmonization he'd established with the station's field be sufficient to mask his presence, or would the scan recognize him as an unauthorized intrusion? The answer came seconds later as alarm klaxons activated throughout the section, red emergency lighting replacing the standard illumination as security systems registered his chakra signature as hostile. Cover compromised, Naruto reported, already moving toward the nearest access route to level 6. Proceeding to secondary objectives. Mara, transmit exact containment coordinates for the Hyuga specimen. Transferring now, she responded, her voice tight with focused intensity. Security protocols activating throughout the station. They're implementing lockdown procedures for critical research assets, including the specimen containment on level 6. Moving with the enhanced speed of full Sage mode, Naruto navigated through increasingly restricted areas of the facility. The station's layout became more complex as he approached the central research levels, conventional corridors giving way to specialized containment areas with advanced security systems. Bo-Katan, he called through the comm. Status of external diversion, maintaining engagement, she replied, the strain evident in her voice as her ship maneuvered against superior numbers. Their modified fighters are displaying predictive tracking capabilities, anticipating evasive patterns with unusual accuracy. Suspect some form of resonance targeting based on the forbidden technique's applications. This confirmed Naruto's fears. The Imperial Remnant had already successfully applied aspects of the Chakra Bester integration to weapons systems, creating technologies capable of tracking and countering conventional tactics with unprecedented efficiency. Their progress was far more advanced than initial intelligence had suggested. Reaching a heavily secured bulkhead marked with Imperial Research classification symbols, Naruto encountered his first major obstacle to accessing level 6. The door featured not just conventional security systems but specialized seals designed specifically to contain and isolate chakra energy, evidence of the facility's primary purpose. Rather than attempting to breach the security directly, Naruto formed a sequence of hand signs, channeling chakra in a pattern that created a subtle distortion in the surrounding energy field. This technique, developed during years of adapting Uzushio methods to modern security systems, effectively created a blind spot in the door's chakra-sensitive detection grid. With the detection system temporarily confused, Naruto applied more conventional infiltration methods to the electronic lock, using specialized tools built into his vambrace to bypass the security codes. The massive door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a sterile white corridor beyond, the entrance to the station's most secure research level. I've accessed level 6, he reported. Proceeding to specimen containment. Mara, any additional security I should be aware of? Multiple layers, she confirmed, the sound of rapid data processing indicating continued efforts to penetrate the station's systems. Automated defense turrets with chakra-sensitive targeting, research personnel with enhanced capabilities, and Naruto, they have a specialized decontainment field around the Hyuga specimen designed to suppress chakra network activity completely. This last detail was particularly concerning. Complete chakra suppression was extremely difficult to achieve without causing severe physiological damage to the subject. Whoever was being held as the Hyuga specimen had endured conditions that would have killed most individuals with active chakra networks. Moving through the research level with cautious efficiency, Naruto encountered evidence of the facility's extensive experimentation program. Laboratory chambers lined the corridor, many containing specialized equipment combining medical technology with metallurgical processing systems. Through observation windows, he glimpsed technicians monitoring test subjects in various Stages of the forbidden technique's application. Some still recognizably human, others so extensively modified that little of their original form remained visible beneath implanted components. The CGHT strengthened his resolve to not only complete the mission but to rescue as many victims as possible. This wasn't simply weapons research, it was systematic torture and transformation of living beings into tools of war. A perversion of both human dignity and the ancient techniques his ancestors had developed for protection rather than domination. Security personnel were more concentrated in this section, many displaying physical enhancements that suggested they themselves were successful recipients of early-stage modifications. Naruto avoided direct confrontation where possible, using his Hado clone technique to create diversions when necessary and maintaining the delicate balance between stealth and speed required to reach his objective before the station's lockdown procedures completed. Primary specimen containment ahead, Mara guided through the calm. 50 meters, then left at junction. Heavy security presence indicated, at least 8 enhanced personnel plus automated systems. Understood, Naruto acknowledged, forming a plan as he approached. Bo-Katan, I'll need a focused diversion in approximately 2 minutes. Can you target external power relays near my position? Affirmative, she replied, her tactical mind immediately grasping his intent. Targeting solution prepared. On your mark. Reaching the final approach to the containment area, Naruto pressed himself against a wall junction. Extending his sage's resonance to precisely map the positions and capabilities of all security personnel guarding the Hyuga specimen. 8 guards as Mara had indicated, with more extensive modifications than those he'd encountered previously. These were elite units with specialized training and enhanced capabilities, likely assigned specifically to protect the facility's most valuable research asset. Creating 3 shadow clones, Naruto equipped each with specific tactical components from his armor, flash suppressors, sonic disruptors, and chakra dampening devi. CES designed to create maximum disorientation with minimal lasting damage. As the clones moved into position around the containment area's perimeter, Naruto gave the signal to Bo-Katan. Seconds later, the station shuddered as precision fire from Bo-Katan's gauntlet fighter struck external power relays connected to Level 6 systems. Emergency lighting activated as primary power fluctuated, creating momentary gaps in the automated security coverage, exactly the distraction Naruto needed. His clones activated their devices simultaneously, flooding the containment area with overwhelming sensory input calibrated to affect enhanced perception systems most severely. The guards, their modified sensory capabilities turned against them, reacted with disoriented confusion as visual, auditory, and chakra-sensitive systems all provided contradictory information. Naruto moved through this chaos with practiced precision, neutralizing guards with targeted strikes to cybernetic junction NTS where their enhancements connected to biological systems. Within 30 seconds, all 8 security personnel were incapacitated, their modified bodies temporarily shut down by precisely applied force. Security neutralized, he reported, approaching the central containment chamber. Proceeding with specimen extraction. The chamber itself was unlike anything Naruto had encountered in standard Imperial facilities. Rather than conventional detention equipment, the room contained a specialized suspension system where a humanoid figure floated within a translucent energy field that pulsed with sickly green light. Monitoring equipment surrounded the chamber, recording and analyzing data from the suspended subject with cold efficiency. And within the field, the subject, a woman, appearing to be in her early 30s, though precise age was difficult to determine given her condition. Her form was slender, almost fragile after years of containment, with long dark hair floating around her like a halo in the suspension field. Most striking were her eyes. Though closed in her unconscious state, the distinctive facial structure surrounding them was unmistakably Hyuga. Naruto's chest HTENED with a mixture of horror and hope. A survivor of the Uzushio Purge, preserved in this terrible state for 15 years as the template for Imperial experimentation. Yet alive, her chakra network suppressed but intact, according to the monitoring systems displaying her biological status. I've found her, he reported, voice tight with controlled emotion. Female, Hyuga lineage, approximately 30 to 35 years old. Alive but in stasis containment. Extraction protocols. Bo-Katan questioned, her focus remaining on tactical considerations despite the humanitarian implications. Naruto studied the containment system, recognizing elements of both imperial technology and perverted applications of Uzushio sealing techniques. The combination was formidable, designed specifically to maintain a living subject in suspended animation while allowing continuous study of their unique chakra network. Standard extraction impossible, he determined after careful assessment. The suppression field is integrated with life support functions. Disrupting it incorrectly could kill her instantly. Can you bypass it? Mara questioned, her voice suggesting she was already searching technical databases for solutions. Instead of immediately responding, Naruto placed his hand against the field's external barrier, extending his sage's resonance to analyze its energy patterns more directly. The corrupted chakra composing the field attempted to interface with his own network, but he resisted its influence, focusing instead on identifying the foundational structure beneath the imperial modifications. It's based on a perverted version of an Uzushio stasis seal, he realized, recognition dawning as he identified familiar patterns beneath the corrupted exterior. They've modified ancient preservation techniques from the Whirlpool Codex, but the core structure remains similar to original designs. This realization provided a potential solution. While he couldn't safely deactivate the imperial technology without risking the subject's life, he could potentially interface with the underlying Uzushio components using traditional methods, speaking to the original technique in its own language, so to speak. I need direct access to the field generator, he told Mara. Where's the primary control system? Adjacent chamber, north side, she directed. But Naruto, security reinforcements are converging on your position. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes. Time was becoming critical. The station's security systems had identified the breach in their most sensitive research area and were responding with appropriate force. Additionally, Bo-Katan's diversion couldn't be maintained indefinitely. Her ship had limits that the Imperial fighters' superior numbers would eventually overcome. Moving to the control chamber Mara had identified, Naruto found a complex array of equipment monitoring and maintaining the suspension field. At its center sat a device unlike the Suro, Unding Imperial technology, an ancient artifact modified with modern components, its core structure unmistakably Uzushio in origin. They're using an original artifact as the foundation for their system, he reported. Both anger and determination evident in his voice. A preservation matrix from an Uzushio temple, corrupted with imperial technology to serve their purposes. The desecration of his cultural heritage fueled Naruto's resolve. Removing his right gauntlet, he placed his bare hand directly on the artifact's surface, channeling pure sage energy into the ancient device. The connection was immediate and jarring, like touching an old friend twisted by torture into something unrecognizable yet still fundamentally familiar. What are you doing? Bo-Katan questioned, the sound of continued combat evident in her transmission. Communicating with the original artifact, Naruto explained, maintaining his focus on the delicate energy manipulation required. Attempting to separate the Uzushio components from imperial modifications without disrupting life support functions. The process was dangerous and complex, like performing surgery with energy rather than instruments, identifying the boundaries between original design and corrupted additions. The artifact responded to his sage energy, ancient systems recognizing a pattern compatible with their original purpose rather than he perverted applications imposed by imperial research. Gradually, the suspension field's color shifted from sickly green to a softer blue as Naruto's influence separated imperial control protocols from the underlying Uzushio preservation matrix. The monitors showing the subject's biological status fluctuated momentarily before stabilizing in new patterns, still indicating suspended animation but without the suppressive elements that had contained her chakra network. Field stabilizing under modified protocols, Naruto reported, maintaining the careful balance required for transition. Beginning controlled revival sequence. As he guided the ancient artifact through awakening procedures it had been designed to perform centuries before imperial technology existed, the suspended figure within the field showed the first signs of increased consciousness. Her eyelids flickered, body shifting slightly within the now gentle support of the preservation field. Security forces 30 seconds from your position, Mara warned. Multiple enhanced units deployed with specialized containment equipment. Almost complete, Naruto responded, continuing the delicate process despite the imminent threat. Bo-Katan, I'll need extraction in approximately 2 minutes. Can you create an approach vector to level 6 external access point Delta? Negative, came her tense reply. Currently engaged with superior numbers. These modified fighters are displaying unprecedented coordination, operating as networked units rather than individual craft. This development was concerning but not entirely unexpected. The forbidden techniques application would naturally extend to pilot enhancement and integrated combat systems, creating fighting units with shared perception capabilities beyond conventional coordination. As the preservation field completed its transition to awakening protocols, the woman within it opened her eyes fully for the first time, revealing the distinctive pale lavender iris characteristic of the Hyuga bloodline. Her gaze, initially unfocused after years of suspended animation, sharpened with surprising speed as she registered Naruto's presence. "Who?" she began, her voice raspy from disuse. "A friend," Naruto assured her, continuing to monitor the awakening process while remaining alert for approaching security forces. "I'm here to help you escape. Can you move?" The woman attempted to shift within the field, her movements weak but coordinated, suggesting the preservation matrix had prevented significant muscle atrophy despite her long containment. "I think so. Where am I? What year is it?" Quote. Before Naruto could respond, the distinctive sound of security forces reached them, booted feet moving in coordinated patterns, weapons systems powering up. EY had perhaps seconds before the reinforcements breached the containment area. Explanations later, he promised, deactivating the final elements of the suspension field and supporting her as she emerged from the containment chamber. "Right now, we need to move. Can you tell me your name?" Her eyes, those distinctive Hyuga eyes, focused more clearly on his face, recognition flickering as she not iced the whisker-like markings on his cheeks. "Rin," she answered, voice growing stronger with each word. "Rin Hyuga, you have the sage's markings." Later, Naruto promised again, helping her toward the chamber's secondary exit as the sound of approaching security grew louder. "Mara, we need an alternate extraction route. Primary access is compromised. Maintenance shaft 22C, Mara directed without hesitation. 3 meters east of your position, behind access panel marked with environmental control designation. Leads to emergency evacuation systems on level 4. Supporting Rin with one arm. Naruto located the access panel and quickly removed it, revealing the narrow maintenance shaft beyond. "This will be tight, but it's our only option," he told her, assessing her condition for the physical demands ahead. Despite her weakened state, Rin displayed remarkable adaptability, another characteristic of Hyuga training, if his childhood memories of the clan served correctly. "I can manage," she assured him. Determination evident despite her physical fragility. As they entered the maintenance shaft, the containment chamber behind them filled with security personnel, enhanced soldiers with weapons designed specifically for capturing chakra-active individuals. Their shouted commands and the sound of activated pursuit systems faded as Naruto sealed the access panel behind them. Buying precious seconds for their escape. "We have the Hyuga survivor," Naruto reported through his comm as they navigated the narrow passage. Proceeding to evacuation level. "Mara, what's the status of other test subjects on level 5? "Security lockdown implemented throughout all research levels," she responded, frustration evident in her voice. "Subject containment areas sealed with maximum security protocols." Naruto. Extraction of additional subjects may not be possible under current circumstances. The reality of their situation settled heavily on Naruto's shoulders. EY had rescued one prisoner, a significant achievement given her apparent importance to the Imperial Research Program, but dozens more remained in various stages of the forbidden techniques application. Their bodies and chakra networks being irreversibly transformed even as they made their escape. The disruptor seals, he remembered, focus shifting to their primary mission objective. If activated, will they disrupt the modification procedures currently in progress? Affirmative, Mara confirmed after a moment of analysis. The resonance disruption would terminate all active chakra-Beskar integration processes, though effects on subjects already modified would vary depending on completion stage. Not a perfect solution, but the best they could hope for under deteriorating tactical conditions. At minimum, it would prevent completion of procedures currently underway, potentially sparing those subjects the full horror of successful conversion. As they reached a junction in the maintenance shaft, distant explosions reverberated through the station's structure, evidence of Bo-Katan's continued battle against Imperial fighters outside. The diversion had extended well beyond its planned duration, placing her at increasing risk as enemy forces coordinated their efforts against her single craft. Bo-Katan, Naruto called through the comm, break off engagement and proceed to secondary extraction coordinates. We'll meet you there with the Hyuga survivor. Negative, came her immediate response, professional despite the sounds of combat surrounding her. Breaking engagement no. W would expose your escape route to direct pursuit. Maintaining diversion until you've cleared the facility. The Mandalorian warrior's commitment to mission completion despite personal risk reflect. The honor code she lived by. Once committed to a course of action, she would see it through regardless of increasing danger to herself. Naruto respected this dedication while recognizing the tactical reality it created. Their extraction window was narrowing with each passing minute. Reaching Level 4's emergency systems, Naruto and Rin emerged into a section designed for rapid evacuation in case of catastrophic station failure. Escape pods lined one wall, while emergency pressure suits and survival equipment filled storage compartments throughout the area. Can you use an escape pod? Naruto asked Rin, assessing her improving coordination as she moved with increasing confidence despite her years in suspension. I believe so, she confirmed, her Hyuga eyes taking in their surroundings with remarkable clarity despite her long unconsciousness. But the security systems would track and intercept before we reached safe distance. She was right. Standard escape pods would be easily PTU read by the modified Imperial fighters demonstrating such advanced pursuit capabilities against Bo-Katan's more maneuverable craft. They needed an alternative approach. Mara, Naruto called, can you override safety protocols on the primary evacuation systems? Not the pods, but the emergency decompression procedures. Understanding dawned immediately in Mara's response. Creating a controlled breach is diversion. Yes, I can trigger emergency protocols in sections adjacent to your position. Timing will be critical. Prepare for my signal, Naruto instructed, turning to Rin with a plan forming. We're not using a pod. We're going to create a much larger distraction while activating the disruptor seals. Are you strong enough to wear one of these? He indicated the emergency pressure suits designed for evacuation into space. Despite her weakened condition, Rin nodded with determination. I can manage. The stasis field preserved most of my physical capabilities, though I'll need time for full recovery. As they quickly donned the pressure suits, Naruto explained the modified extraction plan. When activated, the disruptor seals will create cascading failures throughout the Ion's specialized systems, including the modified fighters engaging Bo-Katan. The resulting disruption should provide sufficient cover for extraction, but we'll need to be outside the station structure when it happens. Direct space exposure, Rin questioned, securing her helmet with practiced efficiency despite her years of containment. These suits aren't designed for prolonged vacuum activity. They don't need to be. Naruto assured her, just long enough for pickup once the systems fail. The real question is whether you can tolerate rapid decompression in your current condition. Her expression, visible through the helmet's faceplate, showed grim determination. After 15 years as an Imperial research specimen, a little vacuum exposure doesn't concern me. Naruto couldn't help but admire her resilience. To endure what she had and still maintain such composure spoke to exceptional strength of character. The Hyuga clan had always been known for their discipline and mental fortitude. But Rin demonstrated these qualities beyond any reasonable expectation. Mara, we're in position, he reported, completing final checks on both their pressure suits. Begin emergency decompression sequence in adjacent sections. Then trigger alarm protocols to direct security forces toward those areas. Initiating sequence, Mara confirmed, her voice focused as she manipulated the station's systems remotely. Decompression in sections 42 through 47 commencing in 30 seconds. Security alerts activating throughout affected areas. As alarms blared throughout the evacuation level, Naruto established a direct link between his armor systems and Rin's pressure suit, ensuring they would remain connected during the chaotic extraction to follow. Stay close to me at all times, he instructed her. When decompression occurs, Let it carry us outward, don't fight the air flow. Rin nodded her understanding, her stance shifting to prepare for the imminent pressure change. Despite her years of containment, her body remembered training from before her capture, the disciplined movements of someone with extensive physical conditioning. Bo-Katan, Naruto called through the secure channel. Prepare for extraction of 2 individuals from Section 44B external hull. We'll be emerging without controlled propulsion, requiring immediate pickup. Acknowledged, she replied, her voice ice-tight with the strain of continued combat maneuvering. Breaking engagement pattern now, moving to extraction coordinates. Be advised, multiple hostiles will likely pursue. That's counting on it, Naruto confirmed. Mara, on my mark. Activate decompression and simultaneously trigger the disruptor seals. Taking position near an external maintenance hatch with emergency release mechanisms. Naruto held Rin securely as they braced for the controlled breach. Timing would be essential. The decompression would propel them outward from the station, while the activated disruptor seals would create system-wide disruption precisely when the Imperial forces would be most focused on pursuit. 3, 2, 1, mark. Naruto commanded. Several things happened simultaneously. Emergency bull. K heads throughout adjacent sections slammed closed as atmosphere vented from deliberately triggered breaches. Alarms escalated to station-wide emergency status as security systems registered multiple hull integrity failures. And most significantly, the 5 disruptor seals Naruto had placed at key junction points activated in sequence, sending pulses of specialized energy through the station's corrupted chakra field. The maintenance hatch before them blew outward as atmosphere rushed toward the vacuum of space, carrying Naruto and Rin with it. The sensation was jarring but controlled, both protected by their pressure suits as the violent decompression propelled them away from the station's hull. Behind them, the massive research facility became visible as its perceptual barrier collapsed. The first effect of the disruptor seals, cascading influence on the specialized systems. The previously invisible station now appeared in normal space, its spiral configuration of central spires pulsing with unstable energy as the resonance field that had maintained them destabilized. Disruptor sequence initiated, Mara reported, her voice tight with concentration. Primary resonance field collapsing, secondary systems attempting to compensate but failing. Naruto, the reaction is more volatile than anticipated. Energy readings suggest potential critical overload in the central processing hub. Through the chaos of their uncontrolled trajectory away from the station, Naruto maintained his grip on Rin, using minimal chakra pulses through his modified armor to stabilize their rotation. The emergency pressure suits provided basic life support but no propulsion capabilities. They were entirely dependent on Bo-Katan's timely extraction. In the distance, the ongoing battle between Bo-Katan's gauntlet fighter and the modified Imperial craft took on new dimensions as the disruptor seals effects reached the enemy vessels. The specialized weapons systems that had demonstrated such unprecedented coordination suddenly faltered. Their energy signatures fluctuating wildly as the corrupted chakra field sustaining them destabilized. Modified fighters experiencing system failures, Bo-Katan reported. Seizing the tactical advantage immediately. Moving to extraction coordinates now. As Naruto and Rin drifted further from the station, its deteriorating condition became increasingly apparent. The specialized spires designed to channel corrupted chakra energy were now working against the facility's stability, drawing in natural energy from surrounding space but unable to process it correctly as the disruptor seals interrupted their operational patterns. Energy buildup reaching critical levels in central processing hub, Mara warned. Recommend maximum safe distance within next 60 seconds. Potential for catastrophic resonance cascade increasing. Bo-Katan, time to extraction. Naruto questioned urgently, monitoring Rin's life support readings through their linked systems. The emergency suits weren't designed for extended vacuum exposure, and her weakened condition added additional risk factors. Visual contact established, came the welcome response. 20 seconds to intercept. Maintain current vector. Through his helmet's display, Naruto saw the approaching gauntlet fighter, its distinctive silhouette growing larger against the backdrop of stars. Bo-Katan had executed a precision approach, evading the disabled Imperial fighters while calculating an intercept course that would match their uncontrolled trajectory. As the Mandalorian vessel approached, its cargo bay doors opened. creating a controlled atmosphere retention field that would allow them to enter without full decompression procedures. The timing would need to be perfect, too early or too late. And they would miss the narrow window of opportunity for safe retrieval. Brace for retrieval, Naruto instructed Rin, adjusting their position to optimize entry angle. The transition will be abrupt. Her response was calm despite their precarious situation. I'm ready. The Gauntlet fighter's approach was masterfully executed, Bo-Katan's piloting skills evident in the precision with which she matched velocity and orientation with their drifting forms. As they passed through the atmosphere retention field into the cargo bay, artificial gravity reasserted itself, bringing them to the deck. With controlled deceleration rather than a jarring impact. Subjects retrieved, Bo-Katan announced, her voice tight with professional satisfaction as she immediately adjusted course away from the deteriorating station. Mara, rendezvous at coordinates Lambda 3 for immediate hyperspace jump. Naruto helped Rin remove her helmet once atmosphere stabilized in the cargo bay, checking her condition with concern. Despite the physical strain of their escape, she appeared remarkably composed, her Hyuga eyes alert and assessing their new surroundings with careful precision. We're safe for now, he assured her, removing his own helmet. This is a Mandalorian vessel. We're allied with its pilot. Mandalorian? Rin questioned, surprise evident in her expression. The alliance continues, then. After all this time, before Naruto could respond, the ship lurched as Bo-Katan executed evasive maneuvers. Through the cargo bay viewport, the research station was visible in the distance, its structure now emitting pulses of unstable energy as the disruptor seals, effects cascaded throughout its specialized systems. Mara, status of the station. Naruto called through his comm, helping Rin secure herself in a jump seat as the ship's movement intensified. Critical resonance cascade initiating in central processing hub, she reported. The disruptor seals have created precisely the effect we intended, but with greater intensity than projected. Energy readings suggest imminent catastrophic failure. As if confirming her assessment, the station's central spires began emitting brilliant pulses of light, corrupted chakra energy breaking free of containment and interacting violently with conventional power systems. The combination created a rapidly escalating chain reaction that spread throughout the massive structure. All vessels clear immediate vicinity, Bo-Katan ordered through open channels, potentially warning even disabled Imperial craft. Resonance cascade in progress with unknown blast radius. The Gauntlet fighter accelerated to maximum sub-light speed, racing to rendezvous with Mara's ship at safe distance from the deteriorating facility. Through the viewport, Naruto and Rin witnessed the culmination of their mission as the Imperial Research Station's central core reached critical instability. The explosion began not as conventional fire or energy discharge, but as a visible distortion in space itself, the corrupted chakra field collapsing inward before violently expanding outward in waves of brilliant energy. The station's physical structure disintegrated from within, specialized components that had channeled the forbidden technique's power becoming conduits for its ultimate destruction. Rendezvous achieved, Bo-Katan reported as Mara's silent calculation asterisk came alongside their position, preparing for coordinated hyperspace jump. Naruto, is the Hyuga survivor stable for light speed transition? Naruto checked Rin's condition, noting her steady breathing and alert gaze despite the physical strain of their escape. She's stable. Where are we headed? A moment of communication silence followed before Bo-Katan responded, her tone suggesting. This decision had already been discussed with Mara. The Temple of Echoes. It's the only location with facilities appropriate for someone with her specific background and condition. The designation was unfamiliar to Naruto, raising immediate questions about this previously undisclosed destination. Before he could inquire further, Rin spoke, her voice stronger than before as recognition flickered in her expression. The Temple of Echoes still exists? She asked, genuine wonder breaking through her composed exterior. I thought all the sanctuaries were destroyed during the purge. This unexpected knowledge raised new questions about exactly who Rin Hyuga was and what role she had played before her capture. The Temple of Echoes was not a designation Naruto recognized from either his Mandalorian training under Tiber Eldar or his childhood memories of Uzushio culture. You know of this place? He asked her as the ship prepared for hyperspace transition. Rin nodded, a complex mixture. Of emotions crossing her refined features. I was a guardian there, before the Empire came. If it still exists. Her voice trailed off, implications hanging unspoken between them. Before Naruto could press for clarification, the distinctive elongation of stars announced their transition to hyperspace. The Imperial Research Station, its test subjects, and the Forbidden Technique's physical imp. Lamentation vanished behind them, though the implications of what they had discovered would undoubtedly follow. Securing Rin more comfortably for the hyperspace journey, Naruto reflected on the operation's outcomes. They had succeeded in destroying the facility and disrupting the Imperial Remnant's research program, at least this particular implementation of it. They had rescued a survivor with errant connections to Uzushio's deeper history than he had previously encountered. But they had also confirmed that the Forbidden Technique's application had progressed far beyond theoretical research. With successful modifications already implemented in both personnel and technology. Most concerning was the revelation that this facility, however significant, might represent only one branch of a larger Imperial Remnant operation. The coordinated pursuit, specialized equipment, and advanced implementation all suggested resources beyond what a single research station could produce independently. Rest now, Naruto advised Rin, noting her exhaustion despite her disciplined composure. We have some time before reaching our destination, and you'll need your strength for what comes next. Her pale lavender eyes, those distinctive Hyuga eyes that had once been common among certain clans on Uzushio, studied him with penetrating clarity. You have the sage's markings, she observed again, reacting out with surprising steadiness to almost touch the whisker-like lines on his cheek. I haven't seen those since before everything was lost. Not everything was lost, Naruto assured her, feeling the weight of his heritage and responsibility with renewed intensity. Some things endured, preserved by those who understood their value, including the alliance between our peoples. Ntle's smile touched Rin's lips, perhaps the first genuine expression of positive emotion she had experienced in 15 years of captivity. Then there is hope still. For both our legacies. As the Nt fighter carried them through hyperspace toward the mysterious Temple of Echoes, Naruto contemplated the unexpected turn their mission had taken. What had begun as an operation to destroy Forbidden technology had evolved into something far more complex, the recovery of living history, a connection to Uzushio's past he had believed completely severed. And in the person of Rin Hyuga, a potential bridge between what had been lost and what might yet be reclaimed. A guardian of knowledge that even the Empire's systematic destruction had failed to completely eradicate. A survivor whose existence changed fundamental assumptions about what remained of Uzushio's legacy in the galaxy. The Temple of Echoes awaited, its secrets and significance yet to be revealed. But one thing was certain, the path forward would require integration of past and present, Mandalorian and Uzushio traditions alike, in ways neither Bo-Katan nor Mara had previously disclosed. Whatever awaited them at their destination, it represented another piece of the complex puzzle connecting Naruto's dual heritage to the current conflict engulfing the galaxy. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.